The main character, a guy with pure white hair and surprisingly bright red eyes, has been an adult for 3 years, but he doesn't have a car, a house, or a girlfriend. From early childhood, he was a belligerent idiot, but always believed in one truth: create a miracle by force. So he persistently practiced martial arts. And finally, another fighter, who was covered in bruises, was knocked out by a strong blow. He fell into a pile of the same defeated fighters. They began to beg in unison not to continue the fight and promised that they would leave right away. The white-haired guy was unhappy. The fighters themselves told him that their Dajiquan was invincible and it was not so easy to win. Several people watching the fight recognized him. The white-haired guy's name was Hal London. He is a legendary demon who personally defeated the martial arts school, and it seems that this is far from the limit of his skills. Hal London didn't even break a sweat fighting with so many fighters. Initially, Hal London only wanted to challenge some people to try their hand, but suddenly a huge number of followers gathered. A lot of bandits were standing behind Hal London, saying that their boss was powerful. Since then, he has taken his younger brothers and started fighting for justice in the city of C, where he lives. Also, from time to time, Hal London was engaged in a small business. He was walking down the red carpet, accompanied by a beautiful green-eyed girl. After reaching the end, the guy turned to the people standing in front. He called them dear brothers and reported that the Axe Gang had been driven away by them. Now he will be the head, Hal London. There were large stacks of money in front of Hal London. He pointed to them and said that the gang of axes was famous for all this money. After that, he promised that he would invest them in the business of the gathered people and urged them to earn money together. One man exclaimed with joy that the axemen had always bullied them before, but now that Brother London is here, their business will finally begin to develop. Another entrepreneur handed him half of his nail and everyone else started shouting loudly and praising Hal London. Soon Hal London changed. From a young man with nothing, he turned into an entrepreneur with money, a beautiful girl, and a high status. Everything was on fire. Of course, his business was booming because there were people who wanted to kill him. Several bandits attacked Du Ganran from different sides. The guy, grinning, knocked them all down with one blow. As a result, such attempts on him did not end well. But he never thought that he would end up in the hands of his people. In an office with huge panoramic windows, a girl with pink hair was sitting in front of Hal London. She expressed hope for a successful cooperation, and also warned the guy to be careful in the future, someone might put an eye on him. Hal London, calling the girl by her name, Ifan, thanked her and said that it was not enough for these people to be afraid. To date, no one knows about the secret conversation except Hal London and Jairu. Ifan can only prepare a festive banquet. The girl winced when she heard the name Jairu, who, although she knew that the gun was not capable of injuring Hal London, still continues her passionate attempts to protect him from a bullet. She said she didn't trust her. Hal London, looking at his phone, said that something was really wrong, because Jairu was still not there. Suddenly he got a message from her. The girl said that she had a gift. When Hal London was perplexed because of this message, a huge shadow suddenly covered the office. When the guy turned to the panoramic window, he saw that a huge plane was flying directly in his direction. He excitedly exclaimed that he had not expected this. They sent a whole plane to kill him, and the guy was really flattered. Ifan panicked and shouted at the guy to run, but he didn't move. After the girl angrily said that he wanted to die. But Hal London knew that the plane was broken and it was too late. And, saying that his slogan is to be an optimist, she concentrated all her strength in her fist. Then the plane crashed into the building. Hal London hit him on the iron nose with all his might. From the large shock wave, glass fragments and ruins flew in different directions. As soon as the guy was glad that he was able to repel heavy equipment, everything went out. A bright light appeared in the dark space, illuminating Du Ganran's hand, who thought he was already dead. The guy, opening his eyes, saw that he was in an unknown space. He looked at himself and, realizing that he was still alive, was surprised by this. Hal London knew that if you don't die in a disaster, you will be blessed. After all, the guy's blessing is called the Champions League. As if a lot of girls began to appear in the game menu in front of him, the goddess of the system, the beautiful sister Chuan, a cute little girl, and even more heroines that can be opened. There is not only a lot of beauty here for Du Ganran, but also full of advantages, because there will be even more girls soon. And as soon as the guy thought that he could enjoy the blessing of all these people this time, Hal London found himself in the epicenter of the end of the world with rampant and terrible zombies. Hal London is currently in such a terrible world, but he knew that in such places there are always some plugins, like in a game. The goddess of the system pointed to the many system windows and said that all the skills are here and asked him to click on any to see a detailed description. Hal London clicked on one of them and a description of the skill pupil surgery appeared. A special eye ability, level 0, updatable, useless at the moment, only the basic functions are promising. The guy confidently pressed the skill acquisition button and the next moment, his eyes turned orange and a pupil in the form of a star. Hal London understood that, of course, there would be no free lunch in this world and asked for permission to live, issue a plugin and actually allow him to destroy zombies in order to save the future. Although the guy resisted, he did not expect that the zombies would turn into gold before his eyes. Inspired by such wealth, Hal London decided for himself that in this case, the zombies should be destroyed. The real option of becoming rich is not a dream. It is feasible. The guy in euphoria began to spin in gold, asking the game not to stop him for anything, because he just wants to be an apocalyptic worker. The essence of money in this bloody world was very great. They are necessary, for example, for pumping skills. The goddess of the system reported that since the first pot of gold was obtained, the skill of pumping the pupil technique was activated and the function of the Hitomi gate became available to return the owner to the real world. Inspired by such prospects, Hal London asked the goddess of the system how much nitrogen he was allowed to use. The girl grinned and replied that it was inexpensive. Each trip requires only 100 million gold, and for such a fee, the guy will stay in the real world for only 24 hours. Hal London was upset. He realized that gold is very useful for him, but now the guy is too poor. Hal London decided to make a plan for the future for himself. Watch how he destroys zombies for the rest of his days, form a women's team and eventually make a huge fortune. A faint spot of light sparkled in the dark. As the light grew brighter, it illuminated the outstretched hand. After opening his eyes, Hal London did not understand where he was. Looking around, he suddenly remembered that he had just died. A picture of a huge explosion and a guy standing in its epicenter immediately appeared in my head. The guy did not believe that Hal London could die, because he could not imagine that he would be killed in front of his people. The guy started producing past events in his head. He was sitting in his spacious office and Ifan was sitting in front of him. She said she hoped for their fruitful cooperation and warned him to be careful, because maybe someone was targeting him. Hal London thanked the girl for her concern and said that these people could not get to him. Besides, apart from them, only Jairu knows about this meeting. After that, the guy ordered Ifan to prepare everything for the evening of the celebration. However, the girl did not trust Jairu, despite the fact that she protected him from being shot in the back. Hal London agreed with the girl, saying that Jairu is not all clean. Besides, she should have already arrived at them, but she is not there. Suddenly, a message came to the guy's phone, and he was surprised that it was from Jairu. The girl wrote that she had prepared a gift for him and he would arrive right to him very soon. When Hal London was surprised by this, behind him, in the huge panoramic windows, the silhouette of a huge plane appeared, flying straight towards them. The guy jumped up abruptly and when the plane had already crashed into the building, he exclaimed joyfully that they had spared no money to kill him, because they had sent a whole plane. Ifan started screaming and begging the guy to run away from here faster. But Hal London knew that it was too late, because the plane was already right in front of his nose and they would not have time to escape. Saying that his motto has always been, "I accept the fight," he hit the plane with all his might on the iron nose. Having replayed these events in his head, Hal London was upset that he could not overcome the plane with his bare hands. But he knew that Jairu would never dare to get rid of him like that and realized that someone decided to take advantage of her. The guy made a promise to himself that when he got a chance, he would find this person and he would answer for everything. The next moment, a system notification appeared in front of Hal London, like in a game, which said, "Hal London. He died on the 25th of May. You have been chosen by the system as the savior of Doomsday and are gifted with rebirth in the world of the apocalypse. When you complete the main task, you will have a chance to return to your world. If you refuse to accept fate, your world will be destroyed." Hal London, after reading about the rebirth in the world of the apocalypse and about the main task, was surprised by this. Besides, if the guy refused, then his world would be destroyed along with him, so he had no choice. He decided for himself that if he was given a chance to be reborn, then he certainly would not refuse. The guy pressed the button to accept the rules of the game. The next moment, a girl with long blue hair appeared in front of Hal London. She introduced herself as the goddess of the system and greeted the guy in the space of the system. The girl said that the next step would be to transfer to the world of the apocalypse, but before that she would briefly describe the situation with the world of the apocalypse. 2030th year, a special drink has spread all over the world. There were a lot of people on the busy street with orange cans in their hands. None of them knew that this drink had terrible consequences. One man suddenly fell to the ground. In the next moment, his skin began to rot, his eyes turned red and his gaze became inanimate. People who drank even a drop of this drink turned into zombies. Zombies feed on blood and flesh, so they began to attack civilians. People bitten by them turned into zombies and the virus continued to spread. Very quickly, society lost order and control. The world has turned into an apocalypse. Therefore, Hal London was called in this world to save those people and allow them to restore their world. The goddess of the system said that the guy here has no chance to be reborn again and told him to try to stay alive. But Hal London was too weak and did not think that he would be able to save the world of the apocalypse. Besides, he was being sent there with his bare hands. The guy knew that the system could resurrect people and wanted to see what else it could do. But the goddess of the system was shocked by his words, because the guy himself jumped on a flying plane without anything. But since he was the chosen one, she decided to help him. The girl said that before electing him, there were 98 more elected, but all of them were defeated. Hal London was the 99th and, of course, would get help from her. The goddess of the system smugly hoped that the guy was scared and he would start begging her on his knees, asking for help. But Hal London's words that the system is useless since it sent so many people to death angered the girl. She angrily told him that in order to increase the chances of survival, the system gives the host a choice of some abilities, but only one ability can be selected. After the player selects it, there will be no more chances to change. She, still in anger, pointed to the ability panel and said that the guy could open one and read the description. Hal London knew almost all of these techniques and there was no point in choosing them. But when he saw the magic eye skill, he clicked on its description, Special Eye Technique, Level 0. Promotion is possible, with an increase in obtaining new effects. The current effect is an X-ray. Overjoyed, Hal London pressed the button to acquire the ability. In the next moment, his eyes turned orange and the pupil took the shape of a star. The goddess of the system reported that the magic eye includes a special technique of the eye of the head system. In the world of the apocalypse, gold has lost its value, but in the hands of Hal London, it is a very valuable material. After all, in order to become stronger, he needs gold. The guy will have to donate coins to the system to save this world and return to his own through the eye gate. In addition, Hal London's magic eye is still level 0 and has only one ability, X-ray. The guy realized that the gate of the eye would allow him to return and he would be able to take revenge on those traitors. His sinister appearance, as he thought out a plan of revenge, puzzled the goddess of the system. After that, the girl continued to explain. In addition to the class ability, the system gives players a beginner's bag. There they will find food for 20 days and a blade. The guy can get them with his mind, and she warned him to use them wisely. The goddess of the system, saying that killing zombies Hal London would get surprises, suddenly said goodbye to him and he began to disappear. The next moment, Hal London found himself in an unknown room. Looking around, he saw that he was in someone's bathroom. An unknown girl was taking a shower behind the screen. Hal London was delighted with such a quick reward. Activating the magic eye ability and using an X-ray, I tried to see what was behind the screen. The guy saw that this was an ordinary person and was surprised by this. He knew that since it was his first time in this world, then he should be more careful, because perhaps the zombies here look exactly like people. The next moment, a knife was thrown at the guy from behind the screen. He flew a few centimeters away from him and, bouncing off, began to rush around the room. Suddenly a hand appeared from behind the screen and the knife went towards him. The girl grabbed the weapon and, defending herself, put it forward. Hal London was surprised by this technique because she almost managed to hurt him. But the next moment, the girl attacked him with a knife. Hal London managed to dodge every attack of the girl, who repeated it over and over again. Then he grabbed her by the arm and, twisting her leg, knocked the girl to the floor. After that, she jumped up angrily and, breaking away from the guy's grip, began to beat him. But Hal London managed to immobilize her again. The girl was surprised that Hal London was very strong. After all, from the very beginning of this zombie apocalypse, she survived only thanks to her powers. Realizing that she could not defeat the guy, she began to threaten that she would summon such a horde of zombies here and the guy would have a hard time, since they very quickly flocked to the smell of blood. But Hal London grinned and said it was a great idea, but the girl was completely immobilized. The girl realized that she really couldn't even move her legs or arms. She looked at him angrily and promised herself that she would tear him apart. To Hal London's surprise, the girl started biting. But after a while, when the guy let her go, she collapsed on the floor. The girl, upset, said that she had been hungry for too long, so her strength ran out, but next time she would definitely overcome him. Hal London, with a predatory smile, took out a tin can from behind his back and handed it to the girl. She was very surprised by this. Canned food in their world was a very valuable product, and the girl did not believe that Hal London was so kind that he would give food away just like that. Hal London, teasing the girl, said that they would have a precious dinner today, which was best cooked on fire. High-grade meat, washed with the purest water, fried in oil. The guy was sure that this girl should have blown the roof off. And he was right, she was fighting with herself not to snap. Deciding for herself that it was better to die of poison on a full stomach, she grabbed a tin can and, after tasting a piece, made sure that the guy was right. After that, she ate the whole can in a few seconds, which shocked Hal London. After that, the girl started asking for more food. Hal London found out the girl's name, Izayali, and said he would give her food if she answered a couple of questions. In a dark room, Hal London was sitting hunched over a map, and Izayali was sitting next to him, holding an apple in her hands. After talking with her, the guy realized that they were in the south of the state of Hua, in a city called Yuanju, and the spread of the virus began 3 years ago. Most of the survivors gathered at a point on the map that he marked. But there are many others who are now next to them due to the fact that a large horde of zombies has accumulated at the northern gate. Izayali gave him a map of Quanju City, and with this map, further movement would be easier. Hal London jumped up abruptly, startling the girl. He thanked Izayali for the exchange and said he had to go. He went up to the window and, praising her figure, jumped out. The girl ran to the window and looked after the departing Hal London. She considered the guy useful, even if he suddenly showed up next to her bathroom, so he also had so much precious food with him. Izayali grabbed her knife and decided to go with him. Hal London walked through the city, which had already plunged into the night. Izayali was watching him from around the corner, and the guy noticed it. He didn't mind, because he didn't think she was bad and didn't pay attention to the girl, allowing her to follow him. The goddess of the system told Hal London that he would get good things for killing zombies, and, not knowing what kind of things he was talking about, he decided to kill a couple. When the guy was walking, he accidentally kicked a tin can that was lying on the ground. A loud sound went through the buildings. There was a zombie in one of them, and when he heard it, his eyes lit up red in anticipation of the victim. Hal London walked, not understanding why the zombies were not visible. And the next moment, the window that was next to him broke and a zombie jumped out, ready to attack him. Hal London was not surprised by the sudden attack of a zombie that jumped on him right out of the window. He jumped back and the zombie's hand, with sharp nails, cut through the empty air. The zombie fell to the ground with a noise. The guy guessed that the monsters were attracted by the sound of that tin can. This meant that they were sensitive to sound. The zombie got up and attacked the guy again. He managed to dodge. Hal London put his hand forward and, summoning a weapon, a blade appeared in his palm. He headed towards the zombie at great speed and at one point cut it into pieces. When the guy wanted to rejoice at his victory, he saw that the zombies were capable of regeneration and the limbs were reformed. Hal London started running away from the zombies in a panic, but he quickly caught up with him, was going to strike again. But the guy cut off his hands with his blade. 2 limbs fell to the ground. But they immediately grew back and the zombie started chasing again. No matter how many times Hal London cut off the zombie's hands, he, with the help of regeneration, restored them again and again. When this happened again, the guy realized that he needed to change tactics. He threw the blade behind his back and got into a fighting position. And with the help of one of the terrifying heaven strikes, he was going to hit the monster with all his might. The zombie was shocked by Hal London's sudden melee attack and put out his hands to protect his face. But even this did not help to avoid the huge strength of the guy. The zombie's face distorted under his fist and then completely exploded. His body fell to the ground, with a huge dark spot instead of his head. Hal London knew from numerous games that the only weak point of a zombie is its head. When the guy approached the body, the next moment, a lot of gold poured out. The goddess of the system appeared, who congratulated the guy on the first zombie kill. The girl said that for killing 1 zombie, he gets 1 million coins, and with this balance he can start donating. Hal London was inspired by such a reward and began to dream of becoming rich. The goddess of the system said that for receiving the first bucket of gold, the guy opened one of the branches of the development of the ability of the magic eye. To raise the level, Hal London needed another 10 million gold to reach the Eye of Martial Spirit, and his money was not enough yet. When the guy stared at the girl in shock after these words, she gloatingly reported that the skill of the golden eye is an X-ray. The next skill of the eye of the fighting spirit is still hidden, and to open it, the guy needs to earn a lot of money. In addition to all this, Hal London activated the Gate of the Eyes, which will allow him to return to his world. The guy exclaimed enthusiastically that this was exactly what he was waiting for and asked how much gold was needed for the transition. The goddess of the system, grinning angrily, replied that it was inexpensive. For each transition, the guy only needs 100 million gold. Besides, he can stay there no more than 24 hours. After these words, all of Hal London's fighting spirit disappeared. The goddess of the system told him not to get upset and get to work. The girl said her last admonition: only objects can be stored in space, living beings cannot. The gold that the guy gets for the murders is visible only to him. You cannot touch gold, it automatically replenishes the system account. When the player goes to the system space, time in the world stops. Therefore, he should not worry that he will be discovered or injured. With the words that it is very important to use these warnings and he can call her at any time, the goddess of the system began to disappear, wishing the guy good luck. Hal London, realizing that he needed to earn a lot of money to use the eye gate, grabbed his head. After he was moved to the city, when the guy went in search of zombies, Ifan continued to watch him from above. She called the guy amazing, because he managed to kill a zombie with one blow. The girl realized that Hal London was not familiar with their world at all. She wondered why a person so gifted, with infinite resources, would go to their hole. She was wondering what other items and things he had. Ifan descended to the ground, and when she landed and stood up, she was suddenly covered with a black bag. Meanwhile, Hal London had already killed several zombies whose bodies were lying in front of him. His balance was 5 million, and he was upset because it was still very far from 100 million. Suddenly, a pungent smell hit his nose. The guy looked around to understand where the stench was coming from and saw a note nearby. Hal London, covering his nose with his hands, took the note and read it. Someone just asked for help and said that he was near an amusement park and there were a lot of zombies there. The guy was happy about this, because where zombies are, there is gold. At the same time, he will find out where they are most. The amusement park was completely empty. Hal London, entering the park, began to look around. Suddenly, he noticed that not far away under the rubble sat a girl who asked for help. When she saw the guy, she was delighted with him and began to attract his attention. But suddenly 2 zombies appeared in front of her, who came to her screams. One of them smiled rapaciously and his eyes flashed a bloody color. Terrible hands shot up to Hal London, but the next moment, the severed limb was already lying on the ground. From the strong blow of the guy, the zombie's entire arm was torn off. At the loud sounds, several more zombies came running. One of them was about to pounce on Hal London, but he put his hand forward and activated a beam that pierced through him. After that, the guy jumped up and, summoning his blade, cut the zombie's head. When the guy landed, 2 men immediately attacked him from behind. Hal London launched his knife behind his back. He flew around, hitting the shoulder of one zombie and cutting the head of another, and jumped aside. Hal London kicked one zombie with all his might, and when he fell, he struck him several blows with his blade. After some time, the blade, to the joy of the guy, rested on a hill of gold. He stood up, saying it was over. The girl watching the fight was very surprised that Hal London was able to kill so many zombies alone. She went up to him and, trying to seem nice, thanked the guy. But he ignored her. Hal London held a dead zombie in his hands and examined it. The girl was taken aback by this. The guy didn't understand why the zombie was dead, and they never gave him the gold from it. Hal London freaked out and, throwing the dead zombie to the ground, began to beat him. The girl who was watching all this thought he was crazy. After some time, gold coins finally started popping out of the zombies. The girl hid from Hal London and wondered aloud if she would be able to escape. Hearing her, the guy asked her a question, which scared her very much. The girl realized that she could not escape and decided that it was worth trying to seduce him. She went out to him and thanked him for saving her. But the guy ignored the temptation attempt and continued to finish off the zombies. The girl followed him and introduced herself as Choo Choo. She said she was looking for food and came across a zombie, so she had to run for a very long time and, tired, hid in this park. After Choo Choo asked Hal London to escort her back for gratitude. The guy was inspired when he heard about the award. He asked what kind of gratitude he was talking about. But, realizing that the girl would not give him gold, he was upset and was about to leave. Choo Choo insistently followed him and, grabbing Hal London by the hand, told him that he was obliged to accompany her. But the guy refused. Choo Choo was shocked, because for the first time her unsurpassed beauty did not work. Then she, saying that she would take measures for his consent, clapped her hands. Suddenly, several girls appeared, who had been hiding all this time and surrounded the guy. One of the girls who surrounded Hal London said that Choo Choo had brought a handsome man to them. She called him a real diamond and approached him. Other girls picked up and started praising him. The guy melted from so many beautiful girls. Choo Choo, seeing that Hal London was being beaten, asked Sister Hong Ying not to offend him. But Hal London didn't mind. Choo Choo was surprised, because he seemed to her a cruel brute. But now he was happy with so many beautiful girls. They took Hal London, who had completely melted in their hands, by the cheeks and said they liked him and asked if he would go with them. Hal London, to many of their persuasions, happily replied that he agreed to go with them. The girls smiled sweetly at the fact that the guy gave in so easily and called it boring. They understood that he was too strong and they had to deal with him when he was distracted. Each girl had her own weapon. When Sister Hu Ying ordered the girls to attack, they suddenly discovered that their weapons, which they had hidden, had disappeared. When they were looking for him in a panic, Hal London, who broke out of their entourage, told them not to look for weapons. He sat contentedly nearby and held it in his hands. The girls were surprised that Hal London was pretending. The guy said that he had already revealed their scheme a long time ago, 10 minutes ago. As soon as Hal London came to the amusement park, he immediately felt something was wrong. Later, he saw a girl who was hiding. Even though she was surrounded by zombies, you could tell she was scared. So the guy decided to look at her with his magic eye. Hal London saw that the girl had a tranquilizer in her pocket, which does not work on zombies, but works fine on ordinary people. But it was too dangerous to go out alone as bait. Therefore, Hal London realized that her partners were somewhere nearby. A couple of them hid nearby, in the bushes nearby. They all have weapons in their hands and none of them looks weak. The guy realized that it was a trap with bait. But Hal London himself always arranged such ambushes. And if they want to catch him, he will punish them. Therefore, Hal London used the technique of a businessman from the past world, sticky fingers. He collected their weapons and wanted to see how they would cope without him. Hal London, standing in front of the girls with their weapons in their hands, ordered them to show everything they still have, otherwise they would not have a second chance. The girls understood that Hal London had revealed their plan and they would not be able to do anything without weapons. They began to stretch their arms, preparing for hand-to-hand combat, and Sister Hu Ying said that no man had ever been able to escape from her. Then after the order to go into battle, the girls attacked Hal London. One girl wanted to punch him in the face with her fist. But he leaned away, grabbed her hand, and, stepping on her foot, knocked the girl to the ground. The other attacked Hal London from behind. But the next moment, a whip wrapped around her leg. The guy used the weapon that he took away from the girls. After Hal London pulled the whip with all his strength, and the girl spun at high speed. Taking advantage of Hal London's back, Sister Hu Ying and Choo Choo attacked him from behind. The two of them were going to attack him with a kick, but even so, the guy remained absolutely calm. Sister Hu Ying and Choo Choo were going to attack Hal London from behind. But in an instant he was behind the girls and their feet hit an empty place. Then they saw that their hands were handcuffed. The girls were shocked by Hal London's speed. The next moment, a knife was pointed at them. When Sister Hu Ying ignored the guy's order not to move, he hit her on the back of the head and she fell unconscious. Izayalin watched Hal London through a small telescope. They were surprised that the guy was able to resist such beauties and did not think that he would not get caught. All the girls who were defeated and tied up were sitting in front of Hal London. The guy didn't understand why all the living people he met turned out to be women. Sister Hu Ying started threatening him in anger, saying that they were from the Black Lily Gang and he deserved a lot of punishment for such actions. Hal London also said that they are more like a gang of black hearts and if the girls do not answer his questions, he will feed them to zombies. Hal London squatted down in front of Sister Hu Ying and said that from their clothes, it could be understood that not only Choo Choo acts as bait for men. Also, in addition to the words that no man has escaped from them yet, the guy asked what really happened to those men. Because he hadn't met any of them all day, and he fell into their trap. Choo Choo replied to Hal London that men have become very valuable animals for them. When the epidemic broke out, in the same conditions, the first signs of the disease appeared in men. Less than a few months later, 2/3 of the male population of China turned into zombies. They were becoming fewer and fewer. Due to the fact that men are more susceptible to infection, they have become on the verge of extinction. Therefore, the tribes of survivors consist of women, and men, of whom there are few left, have become a very expensive resource. Later they turned into hard workers who slowly disappeared. Hal London realized that things were much worse here than he had imagined. Because of the danger of infection, a small amount of food, even the women went berserk. No matter how strong a guy is, it's very difficult to survive here alone, not to mention saving this world. Suddenly, the guy realized he can rebuild the society of this world and create an army of beauties. Suddenly, strange sounds started coming from the old car. When Hal London wanted to use his magic eye, he saw that a lot of zombies were coming at them. The guy realized that they were attracted to their battle. He was delighted with such a large number of monsters because they were given gold for them. One zombie jumped up and wanted to attack Hal London from the air, but he summoned his blade and cut the monster in an instant. After that, several more heads fell to the ground. But suddenly the guy heard a scream. The bound girls were very scared of the zombie that was very close to them. Sister Hu Ying tearfully begged Choo Choo to save her. But Choo Choo, seeing that the zombies had already grabbed her by the hand, said that only Sister Hu Ying was infected here and it was not worth dragging her in. She pushed her away and, getting up, ran away. Sister Hu Ying, who fell to the ground, was attacked by many zombies. Choo Choo ran up to Hal London. The guy, despite the threats of the girl, told her to contact at any time. A huge number of zombies had already gathered behind him, ready to pounce at any moment. The guy cut each monster mercilessly and at high speed. After that, a lot of gold was formed around Hal London. The guy happily began to spin and jump. Allen watched his euphoria from afar and did not understand why Hal London was so pleased. She called him strange because the girls could not seduce him, but he is very happy killing zombies. A huge crowd of zombies appeared. When they saw Hal London, they ran to him. The guy wanted to kill them all and get even more gold, but he understood that he had done a great job today. And if he continues to kill, he will attract even more zombies. At this rate he will not be able to keep such a number. One zombie attacked Hal London, but he instantly cut off his head with his blade. After that, he abruptly turned around and stretched out his hand, in which there was a can of food. Allen's mouth watered when she saw the canned meatballs. Hal London shouted to her that if he had died, she would never have gotten those cans. The girl, taking the hint, shouted that she would come to him right away. Allen got on the motorcycle and started it, headed towards Hal London. The motorcycle, accelerating at a tremendous speed, flew up from the springboard over the crowd of zombies. The girl sitting on it confidently pointed the steering wheel towards Hal London. Allen landed on a motorcycle in a crowd of zombies and, having reached Hal London, ordered him to jump in. The girl also angrily told him to hold the jar tighter, and if he dropped it, she would skin him herself. The guy sat behind Allen. The girl abruptly turned the speed handbrake and the motorcycle, rising on one wheel, went straight through the zombies. Monsters were dying under the wheels of the motorcycle and Allen ordered the guy to hold on tight, as she was going to accelerate. Hal London grabbed her by the waist and the girl, embarrassed, said that if it wasn't for the food, she would never have spent fuel on a man. Under Allen's angry shouts, the motorcycle came out onto the road and headed towards the shelter. Dusk fell on the city. Allen and Hal London were sitting in the house. When asked about this place, the girl replied that it was her second base. When the epidemic broke out, the area of the rich immediately emptied. So she chose this estate and arranged it for herself. After the guy asked about the fuel, the girl said that it was a gift from her father before the outbreak of the epidemic. Allen planned to go by motorcycle to the center of Hua State and find her parents, but due to the fact that there are too many zombies on the northern gate of Gwangju, she could not get out of this place. The girl had to save fuel while here. In addition, she still collects more in the process of exploring the area. Allen hoped that she would be able to get out of here one day, and that her parents were still alive. Hal London upset her story. He handed Allen an apple, saying that a lot of strength would come to her on a full stomach. She grabbed an apple and took a bite with relish. She said she hadn't eaten apples for a long time. The last time the girl tried it 2 years ago, she found one in a frozen food warehouse, but it was rotten. Hal London called her a glutton. After that, the guy decided to find out more about everything. He asked why Allen was following him and smugly assumed that she liked him. She choked on an apple and said in a hurry that she was worried about the food. If the guy had died, she wouldn't have been able to get the cans out of his corpse. Allen directly asked who the guy was and how he managed to get so much food. But Hal London replied that even though they were seeing each other for the second time, he still did not know what kind of person she was, so he did not disclose his secrets. But Allen reminded him that she had told him her name and decided to tell him a little about herself. The girl before the apocalypse was a member of the national fencing team and won prizes more than once. She was an excellent wielder of edged weapons, plus these 2 years she practiced very often. After Allen added that even despite numerous workouts, she couldn't compare to him. Hal London was struck by the girl's story. Since she is a member of the national fencing team, it became clear to him where she got such strength from, and she is definitely not weak since she survived the zombie apocalypse. After that, the guy remembered his plan to create his own society. If a guy has as smart and strong a girl as Ifan on his side, then with such a team, no man's army will be able to defeat them. Hal London is determined to create his own female apocalypse squad. Seeing the guy's sly face, Ifan hit him on the head, distracting him from his thoughts. She angrily said that the guy has some perverted thoughts and demanded from him an explanation of who he really is. Hal London couldn't tell the girl yet that he had been transported from another world. He said his name and lied that he was a master of wushu. As for the food, he pointed to his pants, indicating that the cans are there. Ifan, angry, hit him with a pillow. After finishing the quarrel, Hal London seriously suggested that Ifan conclude a contract with him. When the girl asked about him, the guy replied that he needed to hunt zombies, and she, as he knows, is well aware of the territory. Therefore, Hal London invited the girls to become his guide, and if she agrees, he will pay her with his favorite food. After hearing that Hal London would give a tin of canned food and an apple for every meal, Ifan immediately raised her hand up, agreeing to become part of the team. The girl saw that you couldn't tell from him that he was bad, but she understood why he would kill zombies. However, his offer was very beneficial for her. Ifan put her fist forward as a sign of the conclusion of the contract. Hal London smiled and punched her on the fist. The guy was glad that there is already the first fighter in the female squad of the apocalypse. Ifan suddenly confessed that when the girls from the Black Lily gang seduced him, he thought he would fall for their tricks, but he turned out to be a gentleman. Hal London said with satisfaction that he did not fall into a cheap trap, as he is a good judge of people. Suddenly the door creaked. The guy leaned back on the couch to see the newcomer. His nose bled in an instant when he saw that a beautiful girl came into the room. A beautiful girl was standing near the entrance to the room. Hal London couldn't take his eyes off her. Suddenly, he was hit several times on the head. He watched with a few bumps as Ifan ran up to the girl, and, showing her fist to the guy, said she would help her sister change clothes and ordered not to peek. The door slammed shut. Hal London angrily said that even if he wanted to, he still couldn't ignore her. Suddenly his attention was attracted by a cabinet, inside which there were jewels. The guy realized that the former owner of this mansion was a very rich man, and when the apocalypse began, he urgently fled that he had forgotten about all the valuables. As soon as Hal London touched the gold bracelet, it disappeared in his hands. A system window appeared. The system absorbed the golden bracelet. Personal items can be exchanged for 10,000 coins. It doesn't matter what it is, if it is made of gold. Just one touch and your balance will be replenished. Hal London was inspired by this news. He decided to look for more gold items. The guy hoped that he would soon be able to return to his world for a while. When he was searching the whole house for gold, Ifan came out of another room, leading her sister by the arm. Seeing that the guy was lying on the floor and looking at something under the sofa, the girl asked what she was doing there. Hal London jumped up sharply and in his defense cited the dirt in the apartment, so he decided to clean up. Ifan was surprised that he decided to start cleaning at night. He cleared his throat, made a solid appearance and declared that he was a real gentleman. Ifan was shocked by what was happening while the girl behind her, embarrassed, tried to hide behind her back. After a while, the girls sat down on the sofa and Hal London sat down opposite them. Ifan's twin sister introduced herself as Ifan. She apologized for the incident, explaining her appearance by the fact that they rarely have guests. The guy said there was nothing wrong with that. Ifan exclaimed in anger that Hal London himself should beg for their forgiveness. But Ifan reminded that he is an important person who shared food with her and now he is an important guest. After hearing about the food, Ifan started dreaming about different kinds of delicious food. She, resigned, said that she forgives him only this time. The two sisters reminded Hal London of an angel and a demon because of their different characters. Ifan asked the guy to tell her how they met her sister. As soon as he wanted to say that they met for the first time in the shower, he was grabbed by the cheeks. Ifan said in a hurry that she met him when she was rescuing him from the Black Lily gang. Ifan let go of Hal London and he fell to the floor without strength. The girl understood that it was impossible to let her sister find out that he was spying on her in the shower. Ifan said that Hal London started the story with a shower. The guy with Ifan's heavy hand on his shoulder replied that she just imagined it. Ifan said that if she finds out that Hal London is hurting her sister, then she will not leave him so easily. Even though the girl said it with a sweet smile, a sinister aura appeared around her. The guy saw that she looked like a gentle angel, but it's not that simple. Suddenly, Izayomai started coughing. Izayolin, seeing that her sister was ill, grabbed her in a panic. Hal London realized from the bandages on her body, the pale color of her skin, the cough and chest pain in the girl that she was sick. He activated the magic eye and, after examining the girl, saw that she was heavily infected. The world of the apocalypse is polluted. Bacteria and viruses are around. One scratch is enough for a person to die from the disease. Hal London asked how Izayomai got these wounds. Izayolin, clenching the hem of her skirt into a fist, said that it was because of the girls from the Black Lily gang. A couple of weeks ago, Izayolin and his sister were looking for food in the cold storage warehouse. They entered the building and started packing groceries into their backpacks. They were lucky and they found a lot of food, but their happiness did not last long. The door swung open and Choo-Choo appeared on the threshold with a couple of girls. A gang of Black Lilies looked in on them. They were well armed, and the number exceeded. They only know how to take food from other survivors. Izayolin said that back then they had only found such a large supply of food and would not have given it away just like that. And so their fight with the Black Lily gang began. Izayolin fought them with her blade. She has been proficient in melee weapons since childhood. Izayomai also shot them with an iron bow. She was a very good marksman and from hundreds of meters she hit right on the bull's eye. The two sisters were a great team and quickly defeated the Black Lily gang. They even started begging for mercy so that Izayolin and Izayomai would let them go. As a result, Choo-Choo pulled out a knife from her leg, which Izayolin stuck there and threw it in her direction. Seeing the flying knife towards her sister, Izayomai instantly stood in front of her, taking the blow on herself. Choo-Choo gritted her teeth in hatred and, pulling out the dagger that was stuck in her leg, threw it at the departing sisters. Izayomai, seeing that the dagger was flying straight at Izayolin's back, stood forward, covering her sister with herself. The dagger pierced the girl's chest. As a result, one of the Black Lily gang attacked the sisters from behind, and Izayomai protected her sister from that dagger. Izayolin, in whose hands Izayomai was lying, stared in horror at the dagger that was sticking out of her chest. She was badly injured. Izayolin wanted to take revenge, but their battle attracted zombies. They had to flee from there immediately. Izayolin took her sister's arm and they left the place. Although the girls escaped, Izayomai's wound was too deep and infection began. Izayolin was digging through the shelves of the closet of an unknown house in a panic. They only needed penicillin to stop the infection, but she couldn't find him, which made her sister feel worse. Izayomai weakened. Every day she can't sleep. Maybe soon she won't be able to hold on anymore. Izayolin tearfully started asking Hal London for help. She hoped that since he had ways to get a large amount of food, then maybe he could find a cure. The guy knew that Izayolin was a strong girl, and with Izayomai's shooting skills, his army would become even stronger. He was glad that Hal London's female squad would be replenished with another strong fight and he was obliged to save the girl. Hal London was thinking about how to get the medicine. In his world, he will find what he needs, but he doesn't have enough gold to open the gates. He told the sisters that he would give them medicine, but in exchange they should find him gold. Izayolin was surprised by this. Gold for them was a useless trinket in this world, and she understood why he had given it up. Hal London replied that as soon as they found the gold, he would find the right medicine, and why he needed it should not have bothered the sisters. The guy also promised to bring them such food, which is not in their world. Hearing these words, Izayolin drooled, and she agreed. Izayomai considered Hal London's suggestion. This guy is ready to share even food, and if he was against them, he would have attacked long ago. The girl did not consider him bad, and in the world of the apocalypse, everyone has their secrets. She decided that if he helped them live longer, then they didn't need to learn anything more about him. Izayolin and Izayomai agreed to Hal London's proposal. One of the sisters reported that she knows about the presence of a casino, which is located in the west of the city. This is the first casino in Gwangju and usually used gold instead of chips, so she was sure that there was the largest stock of jewelry for today. But Izayolin rebuked her sister, saying that there was a huge nest of zombies there. But Hal London was happy about it. If he kills everyone in this nest, he will definitely get home very soon. The guy confidently said that they would go there and he would personally deal with the zombies. After that, he put a lot of cans and apples on the table, saying that he needed to rest one evening and in the morning he needed to go to the casino. The sisters happily agreed to the plan. The black sky was visible outside the window. Only a couple of rays of the sun were coming out of the horizon. Izayomai was sleeping restlessly, her face flushed and covered with perspiration. At this time, Hal London was standing on the balcony, looking at the sky and thinking about his past life. He didn't know what had become of his company, but he knew he should go back and find out all the details. He must find out who took advantage of Jairu to get rid of him. Izayalin was watching the thoughtful guy. She was looking for a cure for her sister and came across the girls from the Black Lily gang. She had to wash off the blood so as not to attract zombies. The girl considered it a great luck that Hal London was there and helped her. Even though he broke into the bathroom while she was washing, she felt safe with him. Strange sounds were heard. Izayalin and Hal London immediately realized that something was wrong here. The guy instantly activated the magic eye skill and saw that a gang of black lilies was coming towards them in the distance. Each girl was armed, and the head, a large woman, had a machine gun on her back. The gang reached the bars, and the head abruptly stopped the movement. In front of them was a zombie who was trying to get through the bars. When he noticed the girls, at the same moment a bullet pierced his head. The head of the Black Lily gang held a pistol in her hands and gestured to the others that they should go in 2 columns and pointed to the house where Hal London and the sisters were. The Black Lily gang was approaching the house. Hal London was shocked that Choo Choo had brought an entire gang squad to take revenge on him. Izayalin, seeing the people approaching, wanted to run to her sister, but Izayalmai was already standing nearby, sorting out the weapons. She said they needed to leave with Hal London as soon as possible. Hal London counted the girls walking and was surprised by their number. Besides, they were well armed and I was glad that I escaped from them then. But he understood that Izayalin and the injured sister would not be able to survive. Suddenly he had an idea. He scored a lot of gold for killing zombies and decided to buy something. The guy appeared in front of the goddess of the system. He asked if he could improve the magic eye now. The girl said that he had 31 million on his balance sheet and for 10 million he could improve the magic eye to the eye of the fighting spirit. Satisfied, Hal London agreed to the improvement. As soon as the guy pressed the upgrade button, his magic eye skill improved to the eye of fighting spirit. His eyes turned blue with a white cross in the middle. The goddess of the system congratulated him on the improvement of the eye and informed him that the abilities of the eye of the fighting spirit were transferred to his memory. Hal London said with a sinister look and confidence that he would defeat the Black Lily gang. The goddess of the system also reported that 10 million coins were spent to improve the magic eye. At the moment, the current balance of the guy's balance was 21,010,000 coins. The next level of the magic eye is the eye of the Scarlet Flame, which will require 20 million coins to improve. The girl asked if he wanted to continue improving. Hal London was shocked by the price. He understood that if he agreed to improve, he would never be able to get back into his world and decided to postpone this matter. Hal London refused to improve, postponing it for later. The goddess of the system said that with the improvement of the magic eye, open a new skill wonderful lottery eye. A huge wheel of fortune appeared behind the girl, the prizes of which lay in a huge capsule. She said that the wonderful lottery of the eye is a skill that allows you to get a random reward for 2 million coins. The player can get equipment, skill or weapon. Among the awards there is also a pain point of 7 stars, an antivirus against zombie poison, a sword of Ganjian. Hal London, calling the awards excellent, decided to try. The gears began to move and the arrow of the wheel of fortune began to spin rapidly. When she stopped at one of the cells of the wheel, a roll of napkins appeared in the guy's hands. Hal London started getting angry, calling the magic eye lottery a divorce. The guy decided to try his luck again and once again won an absolutely useless thing. Not resigned, he turned the wheel of fortune again. Hal London's balance was decreasing. Now he had pink bikinis in his hands. The guy, not understanding, began to study subjects. An idea suddenly popped into his head. Izayalin pounded on the door of the room with her fist, calling Hal London. Her sister was standing next to her, clutching her backpack to her. Izayalin, unable to stand it, moved away from the door and, speeding up, wanted to knock the door down. The next moment, the door swung open and Hal London stood on the threshold. Izayalin wanted to kick down the door with a run, but it suddenly opened. The girl fell on Hal London, who came out and, noticing this, blushed deeply. The guy was pleased that Izayalin, who was confused from embarrassment, was not going to get up. The girl, seeing his expression, hit him on the head. Izayomai reminded them of the Black Lily gang that were already close. There were many of them, a large squad had come, and she was sure that their leader Lin Mulian had also come. She has a pistol with a silencer in her hands and it will be difficult to fight with her. Izayalin got up from the floor and confidently declared that today they would avenge their sister's wound. Hal London suggested the sisters not to get involved with them and said that he had an effective way to take revenge on the gang. When the girls asked about this method, the guy showed them the pink bikini that he won from the Magic Eye lottery. He said that their main weapon would be stunning. Yuzaomai was taken aback by such a suggestion, while her sister started hitting the guy, saying that they would never wear it. Hal London, trying to justify himself, begged them to listen to him. The Black Lily gang has already come close to the house. The head of the gang, Lin Mulian, was informed that the guy and the twins who killed Hu Ying were in this house. Lin Mulian, behind whom the gang already had their weapons ready, said with a grin that this time they had nowhere to run. They hid near the entrance to the house. Chu Chu pulled the handle and the door opened. The Black Lily gang entered the house. After reaching one room, Lin Mulian motioned for the others to stand still. Chu Chu, hearing some sounds there, was sure that Hal London was nearby. The head ordered the girls to prepare weapons. Then she and Chu Chu burst into the room. But then they were shocked by what they saw in the back of the room. Tapping her heels and gracefully stretching out both arms, the zombie, dressed in pink bikinis, stood in the pose of a ballerina. Her yellow hair fell back. Seeing this terrible picture, Chu Chu was horrified. The next moment, the zombie turned her head towards them and her blue eyes flashed in the dark. The zombie looked at the newcomers with her blue eyes and jumped down. When she stood up, a huge number of zombies appeared behind her. Chu Chu began to tremble violently with fear. She didn't understand where and how all these monsters had gathered. The next moment, the zombies pounced on them. Their red eyes flashed, in anticipation of new victims. Lin Mulian ordered the others to run. She herself started shooting at them with her machine gun. Suddenly, a wounded girl came into the house and reported that they were surrounded. But she did not have time to finish, as zombies attacked her, who broke into the house. Chu Chu watched in horror as they ate the girl and did not notice that the zombies had crept up from behind. One of them attacked a girl standing next to Chu Chu. Chu Chu's face turned red. Panic seized her. She started telling herself that she didn't want to die. She clutched her ears, letting panic and terror consume her. Lin Mulian tried to shoot back at the zombies, but they did not end and came closer and closer to her. The zombie that summoned all the monsters was going ahead. Her blue eye began to glow brightly, illuminating the white cross. Lin Mulian didn't understand how the zombie was able to defend against everything. The next moment, Chu Chu slapped her across the face. She ordered the head to hand over the gun and began to scold her for the fact that, being under her protection, Lin Mulian could not really kill anyone. The head, in turn, said that if it wasn't for Chu Chu and her sisters, the Black Lily gang wouldn't have popped in here. The zombie watched as Lin Mulian and Chu Chu fought for weapons. She called this picture disgusting and reached back to take the cans. At this time, Chu Chu hit Lin Mulian on the head with a machine gun with all her might. When the head of the gang collapsed, Chu Chu picked up the machine gun. Then she saw a zombie running at her. She, frightened, started shooting from a machine gun. The weapon was shaking in her trembling hands. Lin Mulian, bleeding profusely, wanted to stop Chu Chu. But it was too late. The zombie was running towards Chu Chu, covering herself with a can of fuel. As soon as the bullet hit the canister, there was a huge explosion. The shockwave went beyond the house. Hal London, whose blue eyes reflected a white cross, said goodbye to the Black Lily gang. Hal London carried Yuzaomai on his back while her sister walked by her side. The girls kept looking back at the burning house that was left behind. A notification appeared in front of the guy. Congratulations to the player on receiving 6 million coins. Hal London was delighted that you can also get gold for controlling zombies and killing others. Seeing the guy's joyful face, Yuzaomai called him a pervert and ordered him to stop with bad thoughts. But her sister asked not to swear at Hal London because he saved them from a gang attack. The guy quite agreed with Yuzaomai's words. But Yuzaomai continued to get angry, saying that a lot of fuel was wasted. Yuzaomai asked the guy about that zombie who suddenly started dancing. Hal London, taking a deep breath, decided to confess to them. Hal London answered the sister's question that if you use a special technique of hitting AI points, even they will start dancing without stopping, and showed this gesture with his hands. However, this sign seemed indecent to the girls. They looked at him menacingly. Hal London was covered in bruises, and there was a huge bump on his head. But even so, the guy breathed a sigh of relief. If he said he could control zombies, the sisters wouldn't believe it anyway. 20 minutes ago, Hal London has just upgraded the magic eye to the Eye of Fighting Spirit. The goddess of the system reported that the improvement was successful, and the abilities of the Eye of the Fighting Spirit, the transfer and perception of the player into zombies. On the guy's question, the girl began to explain. The Eye of the Fighting Spirit is activated once every 2 hours. You can only take control of one zombie at a time. If the zombie is under his control, then he can see everything that is in sight. Hal London did not think that he would get such a strong ability for improving a skill with which he could control zombies, and also see everything in front of his eyes. He was aware that the skill needed to be used correctly. The guy was sitting on the roof, looking around the neighborhood. He was not far from the manor. After seeing the crowd of zombies, he used the eye of the fighting spirit. In front was a zombie with long yellow hair. Hal London used the eye skill and, having moved his memories into her, the zombie began to look through his eyes. The guy who was in the body of a zombie moved his hands. When he was sure that everything worked out, he looked at the zombies standing behind and said that their performance was in the other direction. She got into a seductive pose and the other zombies couldn't take their eyes off her. Overwhelmed by her, the zombies began to follow her in a huge crowd. Hal London laughed at this. The guy, praising himself for the stunning plan, began to giggle. The sisters were alarmed. Ifan called him a pervert again and was sure that he was thinking about something obscene again. These words knocked Hal London out of his thoughts. He told the girl that he was just glad that they had dealt with the Black Lily gang. But she didn't believe him. Ifan asked them not to swear, because if they start talking even louder, they will attract all the zombies in the area. The girl, trying to bring everyone into fighting spirit, said that there was still a little bit left before the casino. They won't get there on foot until dawn. Ifan agreed with her sister's words and hurried Hal London. The hand that was struggling out from under a large pile of garbage suddenly began to move. After that, a zombie head appeared. When the monster was looking around for people, a blue dot appeared on its back. The next moment, an unknown person cut the zombie's head, and it fell to the ground with a noise. The head of the zombie that had just been killed was lying on the ground. Behind him stood another zombie, from under the cap of which blue eyes with a white cross were visible. A knife glittered in his hands. Hal London's balance was replenished by plus 1 million coins. The guy, killing zombies with another dead man, also gets money. For him, killing in this way was less of a problem. Hal London killed 3 more monsters in the body of a zombie and his balance was replenished by plus 3 million coins. That's how they went forward, 3 and 1 zombie, killing other undead and approaching the casino. The sun finally rose and lit up the sky. There were a lot of zombies in the city. Hal London and his twin sister were watching him from above. The guy pointed to the door ahead and asked if they needed to go there. Ifan confirmed his words, but a horde of zombies blocked their way. The girl said she would distract the monsters and ordered them to run to the gate. But Ifan stopped her sister. She, holding an iron bow in her hands, asked her sister to provide everything to her. The girl pulled the bowstring and saw that there were too many zombies at the gate. A plan had formed in her mind. Not far from the crowd, she saw barrels. Ifan aimed at them and launched an arrow. The arrow flew forward and, flying over the shoulder of one zombie, hit a barrel of fuel. There was a huge explosion. The zombie, hearing a loud sound, began to run to its source. The area in front of the casino entrance has become completely empty. Ifan reported that there was no one in front of the gate. Hal London praised her for a beautiful shot, to which the girl blushed with embarrassment. Ifan supported the guy and said that if her sister wasn't in a bad condition, she would have been able to hit the target from 1,000 meters away. After that they went to the casino building. After seeing the golden gate and the golden dice that decorated the roof of the building, Hal London was convinced that the casino was overflowing with gold. Ifan confirmed his words, because she herself visited the casino before the apocalypse. The guy confidently led the sisters into the building. Just as they were about to set off, the wind rolled the iron can, and it hit the curb. There was a sound. Hearing him, Hal London immediately ordered the girls to hide. They hid behind one of the buses. The guy watched as a large cloud of dust rose up ahead of the street. Something huge took the lying objects on the road and threw them with all its might in different directions, creating loud noises. Ifan watched in horror at the huge creature, whose size was almost an entire building, and did not understand whether he was a zombie. A huge monster that looked like a big baby was walking down the street. He threw objects that got in his way. After sitting down on the ground, he raised his hands and began to scream heart-rendingly. The rope that was sticking out of his navel rose up and began to spin. A strong wind rose, which broke the windows of nearby buildings. Ifan assumed with horror that the monster that came was a demon. The guy did not know about their existence, and the girl explained to him that according to the stories of the survivors, these are mutated zombies. His destructive power scared them. The monster was equal to 100 zombies, and the sisters did not expect to meet a mutant. Hal London wanted to find out if the demon was so strong and picked up a stone from the ground. Dropping to the ground, he started aiming at the road sign that was bent. Having launched it, the stone bounced off the sign with a noise. Hearing the sound, the demon instantly turned towards the source and began to play with the road sign. A street lamp towered over the demon, on which stood a zombie with a blue gaze. He jumped and aimed his spear at the demon. As soon as the tip of the spear was very close to the back of the monster's head, the next moment, he waved his hand behind his back, grabbing the zombie. The demon began to squeeze the zombie in his palm, and Hal London's memory began to dissipate. The demon began to examine the zombie with his red eyes and, taking the zombie by the scruff of the neck, threw it into his open mouth. The zombie's hand was sticking out from behind the teeth, and then it completely disappeared and bones cracked. Hal London, who was watching this picture, used to think that the demon was just strong and brings great destruction. But he turned out to be smart and fast. The guy understood that with the current level of the magic eye, Lion could not be defeated and not taken under control. The next moment, the goddess of the system appeared in front of Hal London, who agreed with his thoughts. She looked at the surprised guy, smiling. Allen looked questioningly at Hal London, while he looked back and forth, pointing his finger somewhere, then at her. The guy didn't understand if the girl could see the goddess of the system suddenly appearing out of nowhere. But the goddess of the system reassured him, saying that other people could not see her. After that, the goddess of the system pointed to the monster and said that it was a zombie demon that had devoured 10,000 other undead, and that was how he became a high-level zombie. While Hal London is not able to take control of him, but for killing a zombie demon, the guy will be given a big bonus. The system window appeared, temporary task. Destroy a high-level zombie demon in 3 days. Reward, 100 million coins plus a special reward. Seeing the reward for the task, Hal London's eyes lit up. When the guy was thinking about a new task, he was suddenly distracted by Izayomai, who pulled his sleeve. The girl said that they should better bypass the zombies and go to the casino for gold in a roundabout way. But the guy confidently said that they would go for gold after defeating this demon. The sisters were confused by this. Hal London understood that if they went after the gold, the demon might escape. But by killing him, they will not only get rid of a dangerous threat, but also earn a lot of gold. In addition, a bonus reward was given for the completed task. Suddenly, a plan matured in his mind. The guy picked up Izayomai and told the sisters not to worry, because he had a plan. After, with a confused girl on his shoulder, he ran in the other direction. Izayomai, not understanding the guy's intentions, followed him. First, they need to find a safe place to rest. There was an abandoned room near the casino. That's where they would hide from the demon and go straight to the casino from the other gate. Bypassing all the dangers on the way, they avoided meeting with a horde of zombies and, once inside, climbed to the 5th floor. There they found a rest room. She was far away from the zombie horde and safe enough. He pointed the sisters to the door and ordered them to wait there while he checked if there were any zombies nearby. He activated his skill and his left eye lit up with a white light. The guy pulled the handle and the door opened. The room turned out to be a bedroom, but the objects were scattered and everything was dirty. However, there was a black silhouette behind the curtains. Hal London entered the room satisfied that everything was going according to his plan. But as soon as the guy went deep into the room, he slipped, drove a few meters, crashed into the bed. The guy realized that the whole floor was covered in wax. When he suddenly felt something with his hand, the worried twin sisters appeared in the doorway. But what they saw shocked the girls. The whole room was littered with erotic things, and Hal London was sitting by the bed, feeling a rubber doll. Izayomai's gaze became tougher. Hal London, as if in euphoria, felt the rubber doll that was lying on the bed. What she saw made Izayomai very angry. She looked at the doll's black toy eyes again and entered the room. Some time later, Hal London was standing looking out the window, and there were a lot of swollen bumps on his head. The rubber doll was lying on the floor. Izayomai looked at the guy anxiously, but her sister continued to be angry. Hal London remembered the silhouette, looked behind the curtain and saw that the silhouette near the window was just a hat on a hanger. Izayomai interrupted him, asking if he had chosen this room on purpose. The guy, in an attempt to apologize, showed a hat filled with food and said that it was a pure accident. Seeing the food, Izayomai forgot about everything in a moment and only thoughts about it filled her head. The sisters were sitting on the bed, eating apples. Hal London said that he needed to prepare for the battle with the demon and was about to leave the room. Suddenly, Izayomai announced that she would go with him. But the guy refused her and ordered the girl to stay in a safe place and protect Izayomai while he dealt with the demon. Izayomai saw him off and asked him to be careful. Hal London slammed the door and was ready to start acting according to plan. First, he had to find a safe. But to deal with the demon, he needed more coins, and this place suited him. Going to one of the doors, he opened it and entered a room that was completely full of zombies. But as soon as the guy wanted to start the battle, strange sounds were heard behind him. When Hal London turned around, he saw that a huge zombie had crashed into the door with a run. The monster, who had a huge torso and huge arms, looked at the guy with his crazy red eyes. Hal London was glad to see him, because this huge zombie was the best fit. The next moment, the monster, growling loudly, wanted to strike the guy. Hal London activated the martial spirit eye skill, and the huge fist that was about to strike stopped near his face. The zombie froze, and then his eyes lit up with a blue color, in the middle of which a white cross was visible. Hal London was standing at the entrance to a room with a large number of zombies inside, and a zombie giant was standing behind him. Their eyes were the same color. As soon as the guy pointed in the direction of the undead, at the same moment, the zombie giant pounced on them. Hal London's balance began to replenish. The guy ordered the zombie giant to stay in the room and finish off all the undead. He himself went to look for a safe with gold. Hal London decided to start the search from the basement and from there to climb higher. After some time, a tired and out-of-breath guy was climbing the stairs. He searched all the buildings and couldn't find anything. Hal London had completely searched the main casino building and was on the top floor. He was already desperate, thinking that the safe was not here and it had been moved. He came across an office and realized from the luxurious interior and furnishings that this was the office of the casino owner. Suddenly it dawned on him that the safe with the gold might be there. Inspired and full of hope, Hal London began to inspect the office. He came across a photograph hanging on the wall. It depicted a beautiful young girl and a heavy man with a mustache who was in old age. Hal London activated the martial spirit eye skill and saw that there was a mechanism in the painting. He pressed the activation button and hoped for electricity. After that, two bookcases began to move apart and a passage appeared. The guy was very happy that there was his own generator. Hal London examined the passage and saw a safe at the end of it, which was of large size. He was sure that the gold was definitely here. But as soon as he wanted to enter the passage, the way was blocked by a security system. All the way to the safe was in the red lines of the security system, which could not be touched. But that didn't stop the guy. He, as if in a game, began to crawl on the floor, trying not to touch the red lines of the defense system, and to pull various tricks to get around them. Hal London was able to walk all the way to the safe without touching a single red line of the security system. Rejoicing at this, the guy went to the safe. He activated the magic eye and his eyes turned orange, and the pupil took the form of a black star. But when he looked inside, he saw that there was only an envelope inside the safe. Hal London slumped to the floor in disappointment. He walked around the 52 floors of the casino in search of gold, but could not find it. But, pulling himself together, Hal London told himself that he had to find out what was inside this envelope, because such protection should be for something special. He hit the door of the safe with all his might and, opening it, entered there. The guy took the envelope in his hands and read the signature. "You will open it when your wife is not around." Burning with curiosity, Hal London hurriedly began to open it. There was a torn photograph in the envelope. It was the man from the photo in the office, and next to him lay a girl who was torn from the photo and only her legs were visible. The guy didn't understand why to hide such a photo and called it a waste of time. He turned it over and saw some code. Suddenly, a notification came from the goddess of the system. She reported that the zombie giant that the guy took control of died, but he earned him a lot of coins. Right now, Hal London's balance was 51 million coins. The guy called the zombie giant a good fellow. Although he did not manage to find gold, he decided that it was worth raising the level due to the accumulated coins. He moved to the system menu and the goddess of the system greeted him. Hal London upgraded the Eye of Martial Spirit to the Eye of Scarlet Flame, the cost of upgrading which was 20 million coins. The guy was enveloped by a purple light, and he immediately felt several times stronger. In the next moment, his eyes flashed purple and a white six-pointed star shone in the middle. A system notification appeared. "Player, congratulations on improving the magic eye to the level of the Eye of the Scarlet Flame. Now you can take control of 2 zombies, and a new skill Eye of the Falcon has also appeared. Balance, 31 million coins. Hal London was pleased that he can now control 2 zombies at the same time. The guy asked the goddess of the system about the new skill Eye of the Falcon. She replied that he should study it himself. Also, after the improvement of Hal London, a new ability of the system became available: 10 turns. In 10 turns, the opportunity to win precious artifacts and the magic eye lottery will grow, and I asked the guy if he wanted to try. Hal London agreed. 11 million coins were spent, and Hal London had a bunch of old useless things in front of him. Hal London began to inspect the things he had won in 10 turns in the magic eye lottery. Among them were pink pajamas and a green durian. Later, the guy noticed that the durian was empty. The goddess of the system grinned and told the guy to look for more, because maybe there would be something interesting among the things. After her words, Hal London looked at the things again and noticed something. A small red box caught his eye. The guy picked up a small box in his hands and saw that it was erythromycin ointment. Hal London understood that, of course, this ointment would not cure Izaiomai completely, but at least it could stop the infection. When he put away the erythromycin ointment and looked up, he suddenly noticed that in the distance, among the things, there was a black box packed. The guy, having opened and looked at the object, could not believe his eyes. After some time, Hal London reappeared in front of the broken safe door. On his back hung a black box tied with a red ribbon, and in his hands he held a package. The goddess of the system thanked the guy before he left and told him to return to their casino again. When Hal London was about to leave the corridor, the zombies entered the office. One of them had a very long and scary tongue. Hal London immediately realized from the sounds that zombies had broken into him. Turning around, he saw that the zombies were already at the passage to the safe. He knew he could deal with the zombies, but if he touched those red lines of the defense system, he would be killed immediately. At this time, the zombies noticed Hal London. One zombie went crazy when he saw a new victim. His mouth opened and the terrible tongue began to move disgustingly. His red eyes greedily examined Hal London. The next moment, he started running towards the guy at high speed, but fell under the red line of the protective system. A small passage opened in the wall and a golden cannon came out. She, spinning, began to shoot the fleeing zombie, and almost immediately the killed monster fell to the floor. The power of the weapon surprised Hal London. He was confused, not knowing what to do. At this time, other zombies re-entered the corridor to the safe and again touched the red lines of the protective system. The red light came on. A huge number of new guns came out of the wall and ceiling. They started shooting in different directions. Hal London, watching the numerous bullets, figuring out how he should dodge so many at once. In the next moment, one of the bullets was near the face of a guy whose eyes were burning purple. The story begins its narration. The action of the picture revolves around the description of the thoughts of the main character. According to them, the man was an ordinary food deliverer at home. He lived with his dog, who managed to become his most loyal friend. Readers saw a guy with overgrown dark hair and light eyes. He had a pointed nose and chin, which gave a young and well-groomed appearance. On his head was a helmet with big ears like a rabbit. Next to him was a dog with a dark blue gaze in blue and white colors. However, the character did not realize that there is nothing permanent, that everything can change dramatically and irreversibly at any inconvenient moment. In the next episode, the main character, who was sitting on the road, and his pet watched the surrounding situation with fright. The audience could see how they were surrounded by the motionless bodies of people. Someone was standing next to the vending machine with his back against it. The other lay down on the fence of a flower bed with a tall tree. And the third one was just in the middle of the road. As it turned out, it was a world where zombies were rampaging. The painting described how humanity had changed externally. Both men and women lost the irises of their eyes, making the look empty and somewhat frenzied. Their skin has acquired a purple hue, emphasizing the protruding vessels. Nails have become sharper and teeth are stronger. They moved in a crowd, thus knocking each other down and preventing them from reaching the prey, adding time to catch it. The main character was pleased with something. The fact was that, despite what difficult and dangerous times there were, he still had a chance to meet interesting and beautiful girls. The image of a tall and well-built heroine with short hair and brown eyes appeared before the readers. Her figure shone against the sunlight. The second reason was the fact that, of course, what kind of apocalypse could do without the system? The painting describes how a blue glow and tables with various inscriptions appeared around the man. For example, according to one of them, the device congratulated him on activating the food delivery supersystem at home. In the left hand of the main character, a phone was formed, and in the left a frying pan. However, in his opinion, it was like a setup, because this system was connected with the delivery of food to the house. Although he had awakened a hidden ability in himself, but contrary to expectations, the guy was still an inept food deliverer. He was interested in the question of why fate was so unfair to him. The character grabbed his hair and angrily began sorting through his thoughts. Even his dog has adopted a sad mood. And then there was an alert from the system that informed about the delivery from the end of the world, making an offer to sign for receipt. The development of the story revolves around the description of urban life. Above the tall buildings that looked like glass, the sky towered with different colors, from yellow to dark blue. Solar sparks flew in the atmosphere, which gave a magical appearance. On the head of the main character was a massive yellow helmet with large rabbit ears. He pulled on a slight smile and cast his relaxed gaze in front of him. The dog, who was sitting opposite him, happily wagged his pink tongue. He, like the owner, was in a joyful mood. And so the guy began his narration, thanks to which readers were able to get to know him. It became known that his name was Ifan, and he worked as a simple and uncomplicated food deliverer. The picture describes how the main character drove up to some building on his small yellow moped, as well as his uniform. He knocked on the glass door and greeted someone, shouting that he had brought rice balls to take away. A tall stranger came out to meet him, who stretched out his right hand to pick up a bag of food. Ifan pulled on a smile, making a cute expression on his face, and handed over the rice balls, asking the customer to leave a good review, at the same time thanking him. The order was completed successfully, as it was shown on the smartphone screen. The main character was pleased with himself. He exclaimed joyfully that everything went as he had planned. According to him, the man was engaged in delivery every day. He worked in every corner of the city, walked day and night to maintain world peace. In the next episode, Ifan was subjected to someone's scream, and not only him, his dog also got hurt. Someone cursed viciously to show how angry and upset he was. As it turned out, it was a girl with dark hair and sharp bangs. The lady furiously tried to convey to the man that for such a bad service, whether the main character wants to believe or not, she left him a bad review. Moreover, the heroine was sure that she was doing everything right. However, Ifan did not listen to her unintelligible speech any further. He made a few bows and continued to beg for forgiveness for a while. His mood was taken over by the animal. The dog, feeling like his master, tucked his long gray tail between his legs and pressed his ears, probably because he was scared of annoying and somewhat scary screams. Ifan and his pet, sitting in front and catching streams of cold air with a small mouth, rode on their yellow moped along a narrow street, which was illuminated by the glow from working eateries. That's just the character could never have imagined that one day, as a food deliverer, he would take on the task of saving the world. Suddenly, the attention of the main character was attracted by something that looked like a pillar of light, around which a fiery energy was formed, burning with its brightness. His eyes widened, either from surprise or fear. People around began to observe and discuss among themselves the fact that in the weather forecast it was said that wind was promised for today. Only such a phenomenon was not like him from the word at all. Each of them wondered what it was. Some even made the audacious assumption that the end of the world was approaching. So they were overtaken by fear. Ifan stopped his moped, leaning on his left leg, and then he exclaimed, cursing why the sky had moved beyond the solar system. He was just as confused as his dog. The main character plaintively opened his mouth, not knowing how to react correctly, and tears even appeared in his pet's eyes. Then his attention fell on the top of the smartphone, which made him tense up and doubt, because he received an order from the end of the world. Moreover, it seemed to him that someone was mocking him. The protagonist's eyebrows arched in a wide arc, and his lips closed like a duck's. Even the dog's eyes began to watch the phone suspiciously. They stared at him in silence for a while, and after a couple of seconds, Ifan pressed the green button. The countdown has begun. 10%, 0.30%, 0.50%. The host received the order, and the delivery super system was activated. When the download was almost over, something made the guy wary. Then suddenly a charge like an electric one hit the sky. Its glow illuminated everything around the main character at a distance of several meters. As it became known after a short period of time that the superfood delivery system was activated, orders automatically began to be accepted. And the first one was successfully received, so the reward for success was presented in the form of hundreds of points, and the order itself could be cancelled, but in this case the owner would suffer severe consequences. The picture described how, due to a strong jolt after lightning, which for some reason had a purple hue, Ifan fell to the left side of his moped, dropping his smartphone along the way. However, the app continued to keep alerting. This time it made an offer to insert an advertisement. A superfood delivery system is a good system for the good of people. Moreover, it was designed to provide a variety of high-quality services to humanity, which is in trouble all over the world. After that, something else followed. However, the main character was no longer listening. Or rather, he was not capable. Ifan was lying on the bare ground, trying to cool down from surviving the blow, and next to him was his phone with a bright screen. Then the action is transferred to the description of the urban infrastructure. On a high-rise building, readers could notice how the windows were lit pointwise. Signs were burning somewhere, and the sun has already set over the horizon, giving its last ray of light to illuminate the dark streets filled with various figures. Suddenly, a stranger appeared before the eyes of the audience, who leaned on his arm and tried to stand up. But the aura around him was somewhat strange. It had a dark purple hue. As it turned out, these figures were human bodies. Silhouettes began to appear on the horizon, around which bright energy burned. Readers could see the appearance of one of them up close. The stranger had sharp teeth, a swarthy skin tone, and the whites turned orange in his eyes, which was even more emphasized because of the creases that appeared under the lower eyelid. In the next episode, the story focuses on the destroyed buildings. Apparently, they were hit by the same charges as the main character, but they couldn't resist. Holes were punched on their tops. Everything was burning with a bright flame and was sealed with huge clouds of smoke. The picture describes to readers how the zombies rose in turn and began to move in one direction. At this moment, the main character was still lying on the ground. The Walking Dead passed by him, and he didn't even notice it. Of course, up to a certain point, Ifan moved his hand. As it turned out, the reason for waking him up from a long sleep was that the dear pet was drooling on his face, sniffing at the same time, as if he was trying to make sure that his owner was safe and sound, without any injuries. The man opened his eyes and instantly sat up, straightening his back. He stroked the dog on the head, from which he began to wave his sharp erect ears. As it turned out, the action continued after 16 hours. The main character began to look around and expectantly observe the current situation. Aloud he asked a question. He was interested in what was happening on the street and why there were many corpses there. They were everywhere, next to the soda machine, on the road and on the fence of the flower bed. Then something caught his attention. The pet humbly looked in the same direction as Ifan. It was about the smartphone. A yellow image with some kind of inscription appeared on his screen. A couple of seconds later it became known that a certain client had ordered pills for a heart attack. The recipient's address was in the Purple Dragon Garden 888. He became a character named Hin. The client also left his phone number in order to avoid strange situations. Moreover, the main character could get 100 points for delivery, but in case of failure, he will have to suffer heavy punishment. The next moment, Ifan asked a rhetorical question to the system, curious about what happened to the rice balls. He made an audacious and at the same time bold assumption that something had happened to the owner. However, he thought it was all some kind of joke because she wrote some nonsense. Suddenly, the picture focuses readers' attention on someone's steps. Apparently, women's, because the character's feet were wearing dark blue high-heeled shoes. Then this girl fell on the back of the main character, which made him somewhat happy. He half turned his head over his left shoulder and looked at his sister, asking her what she needed. However, the audience could not see her expression or understand if she really needed something. The reason was that the upper half of her face was hidden by the shadow of her long bangs. When the episode showed her closer, readers could notice the dark aura that lived around her. The heroine opened her mouth without making a sound, leaving Ifan unanswered after such mysterious behavior. The action of the next chapter begins with a description, or rather, with a study of the intimidating appearance of a new acquaintance. The girl turned out to be a zombie. She had sharp teeth and white skin on which there were drops of blood. The next moment, she readied her claws and got into an attacking pose. However, the main character managed to react. He jumped up on both legs, forcing his dog to make the same movement, and shouted at the top of his voice, at the same time cursing that he was only a couple of minutes late. The heroine began to move. The audience could see how the veins on her legs swelled. She got off the floor and made a jump. Her appearance was intimidating. The eyes alone were worth something. Their iris seemed to have disappeared, and instead of a white there was an orange area. The Walking Dead in her face behaved like a hungry beast that saw its prey and began to hunt it. When she rushed at a fast run towards Ifan, the man and his pet were very scared. It was as if a discharge ran through them, similar to an electric one. Only this did not revive them at all, but rather put them into a stupor. There were already tears in their eyes when suddenly a pistol shot rang out. He managed to stop the zombies, and now the man and his dog became even more surprised. The animal closed its eyes in fear, pressing harder into its owner, who all this time continued to watch his little sister fall to the ground. Then the story tells about the appearance of a mysterious girl with short brown hair and a refined figure. She was wearing a dark green top and a black skirt, around which was a brown bag. Ifan turned his head over his right shoulder towards her, and she, without thinking twice, explained that there were a lot of zombies behind. It was purple-blue, which influenced the main character even more. Surprise mixed with horror froze on his face because a rather beautiful girl was standing in front of him. He briefly pointed at the recumbent zombie and explained that his strange reaction was provoked by the fact that she had just dealt with a zombie, and now he was faced with the question of who she was. That's just the purple-blue continued to stand silently and watch her interlocutor, who was almost crazy. Suddenly, something caught their attention. A light fog appeared on the street, and then someone's footsteps followed. Of course, they were zombies. There were several dozen of them. The Walking Dead as a whole group moved in the direction of the characters, knocking each other down and not allowing them to push through to the prey that appeared. They occupied the whole road, only now it might seem that there were several hundred of them. They were moving along the bloodstained street. Ifan, when he saw such a sight, opened his mouth in surprise and horror. The next second, he screamed at the top of his voice, making the audacious assumption that it was like a zombie movie. Moreover, he was trying to guess how many Walking Dead were in front of him. He even fell to the cold concrete ground in horror. And to make sure that he was not dreaming and that he had not gone mad, Ifan pulled his dog on the cheek, which only angered him. The animal bit the hand of its owner, and he, in turn, exclaimed resentfully how stupid he was. His hand burned red, as if it had been dipped in boiling water. Purple-blue entered the dialogue. She rushed in the opposite direction from the main character, at the same time saying that it was a waste of money. After a couple of steps, the heroine got on a red motorcycle and stepped on the gas. Just a second later, she disappeared from the horizon, leaving Ifan and his dog alone among the tall stone jungle. They stared after her in silence for a while, probably coming up with a plan for further actions. Although it didn't last long, because they decided to keep the Walking Dead company. But they decided not to give up. The main character ran after his new friend, shouting that she did not leave him alone, because how could she? The situation was quite dangerous. The man and the beast chased after her red motorcycle, raising clouds of smoke and dust behind them, still hoping for a good end. The story continues to tell an exciting development of events. This time she describes how a crowd of the Walking Dead ran after the main character and his pet, overcoming obstacles in the form of heights, boulders that collapsed after buildings broke down, and other zombies. However, suddenly there was some kind of shock, which caused a large flow of dust and smoke, which made Ifan close his eyes, protecting them with his hands. A new monster has appeared on the horizon, except he wasn't like the others. It was far from human. He had sharp teeth like a shark, a long tongue and red skin. From a human being, the creature took only the torso. As it turned out, a zombie of the second class appeared before the eyes of readers. His appearance greatly surprised the man who was already scared. In his head, he cursed heartily and wondered where these Walking Dead came from in the first place. There was a look of horror on his face. Moreover, it might seem that he was as if in prostration. It was as if nothing around him existed. There was a new blow. The shock was so strong that concrete broke through under its pressure, scattering small fragments after itself. The story describes to readers how a red-skinned zombie of the second class appeared in the sky, or to be more precise, right above Ifan's head. He made a swinging motion, as if a predator was trying to catch its food. But the main character managed to react. The man grabbed his dog and leaned back with all his weight. Thus, he was able to dodge the monster's blow, which struck with such power that the earth trembled and burst into small pieces. The guy, all this time holding tightly to the dog, rushed away from the zombies of the second class. However, as if he was in no hurry, he watched Ifan run away in the opposite direction. As it became clear, according to the words of the main character, he could not fight, so all he had to do was run away. Readers could notice how a red aura formed behind his back, and the guy himself has almost approached the building with high glass doors. Having broken the window, the man found himself inside some dark room that was not illuminated, even thanks to the hole made. Leaving his yellow helmet, Ifan held his pet in his arms and hid behind a wall. Thus, he could calmly observe the danger in the form of a walking red-skinned dead man who was prowling the street and looking for him. In his thoughts, the protagonist came to the conclusion that this second-class zombie had recently evolved. And for this simple and obvious reason, he should not have caught the eye of a hungry creature. Then the guy scratched his chin, slightly furrowing his eyebrows, and said out loud that, looking at the whole situation, the primary Walking Dead were moving slowly, they could not be active for very long. But, as for the evolved second-class zombie, its strength and speed increased significantly, but only feelings could be counted on. Suddenly, a dog barked menacingly. As it turned out, the animal warned its owner about the danger. A zombie appeared behind the main character, who rushed in their direction. Apparently, this creature used to be a cook, which could be seen from his uniform. Ifan caught sight of a frying pan. He grabbed it with his left hand and, taking a step forward, jumped high up. The man swore either out of anger or from fatigue. There was no fear in his eyes, only zeal and a desire to live. He looked down at the walking dead and then, approaching him, struck a crushing blow, forcing his opponent to fall to the floor face down. Thus, Ifan managed to repel the attack from the zombies that did not come. He got up on both feet, leveled himself and kept his balance. Readers may have noticed that something like smoke appeared around him. Moreover, the main character himself greedily gulps air to restore his lost breath. The man turned his head over his left shoulder and said out loud that there were so many monsters waiting for him outside. And staying in this place meant waiting for death, because surely they heard the scream. The guy looked at the broken window through which a group of zombies and one evolve could be seen. However, something else caught the attention of the audience. The phone vibrated in the pocket of the main character. As it turned out, Master Ifan had completed the first kill, so he was entitled to a reward. The item took out 1 point. There was also permission to successfully activate the career attribute. Moreover, the system introduced readers to the current characteristics of the main character. His combat power was 6 units, wisdom 9, defense force only 1, luck 16. But as for the profession, he held the position of a deliverer, but the level of the profession was not developed. However, this only made the situation worse because Ifan got angry. He cursed out loud and shouted that he was already tired of this food delivery system because she didn't even try to owe him wages. The story then focuses on the purple blue, who came to the conclusion out loud that he was still there. The girl took a deep breath and looked at some device where Ifan's image was located. The story continues to lead its narrative, attracting more and more viewers, making them wonder what will happen to the main character, with whom the system was communicating at that time. She congratulated the host on activating the takeaway food super system. The novice package was now available to him. A blue digital space formed around him, and the guy himself was holding his phone in his left hand and a frying pan in his right. However, from Ifan's face, the audience could make a bold assumption that he had no idea what was going on right now. He had surprised eyes. According to the takeaway system, the main character received 500 points from the beginner's package, which could be exchanged for various goods. A burning blue scoreboard appeared in front of him, behind which there were devices of excellent shapes and sizes in the form of a bat, a brick, a glass bottle, and others. In the next second, the man came to some conclusion. Aloud, he was amazed at the fact that he managed to awaken special powers in himself. It was as if he had been electrocuted. Moreover, it might seem that he did not know at all how to react correctly. However, due to his growing curiosity, he cast a glance at the mysterious objects. The first brick came across, next to which was the inscription +3. Ifan twisted a funny expression on his face. Apparently, he was nervous because drops of sweat were already flowing down his cheeks. He pointed with the index finger of his right hand at the sign and asked what it was. His dog was also somewhat nervous because suspicion and discontent froze on his muzzle. Then the system explained to its owner that it had successfully received a gift package, so it made a reminder to him so that he would not forget to put 5 stars. However, it didn't stop there, because she felt that Ifan was required in getting answers to her questions. After all, he had no idea what he was dealing with. A moment later, it became known to both him and the readers that the food delivery system is a system that provides high-quality takeaway food services. Moreover, she even had her own slogan: fast delivery, quality delivery, big sales, superfood delivery system. The man's initial reaction was somewhat strange. He stood for a while and just tried to digest the information with a questioning expression on his face. But suddenly Ifan grabbed his overgrown dark hair with both hands and knelt down. He shouted at the top of his voice that he had received superpowers and still had to work as a deliverman. Then an idea came to his mind, according to which the main character was born to work hard and hard. His dog, just like his master, drooped, tail down and ears tucked in. A dark aura formed around them, and something like a charge appeared in the sky. Ifan and his pet were alone for a long time. Apparently, they forgot about its transience, that they did not have time to keep track of how a group of walking dead appeared outside the window. They began to make their way inside the building through the broken windows. Their white eyes burned with a frenzied desire to get to the prey. The dog noticed them first. He began to bark maliciously, thus returning his master to reality. The man half turned over his left shoulder and saw this sight. There was horror in his eyes because he was caught off guard. In his mind, Ifan cursed and was horrified because the creatures were approaching him. Then the picture focused the reader's attention on his right hand, in which there was a frying pan. The guy grabbed her harder and took a defensive pose. As it turned out, it was an item offered by the system. and she, in turn, congratulated her master on receiving a frying pan worth 15 points of strength. A zombie with sharp claws was moving towards the main character, but the man was already ready to meet his opponent. He and his dog waited expectantly. Behind them were fragments of wooden chairs, tables left probably after the attack of the zombie chef. In the next second, the narrative described how the food delivery system again brought a congratulatory message to the main character. It became known that he had successfully activated the attribute of a side hidden profession, chef. Then the current host data was presented. For example, Ifan's combat power was 15 units, wisdom as many as 91, defense capability 1. His lucky number was 16. Moreover, it was even indicated that he worked as a deliveryman, but the secondary profession, chef, was not active. The number of his points was 501. The man was very upset that tears fell from his eyes. He made a strange and somewhat funny sound, turning to his dog. Now readers could know that his nickname was She. Ifan grabbed him and pulled his cheek, while at the same time pathetically saying that the guy worked as a delivery man, and now that he got the strength of a chef, she became his secondary profession. In his opinion, it was too hard for him. Moreover, the main character compared him and his pet with children from a poor mountainous area, because now they had to bear such a heavy burden at such a young age. Ifan now hugged his dog, who was apparently unhappy. You could tell by his tired eyes. She silently watched what his master's next move would be. That's just it. Might seem that such strange behavior left the Walking Dead with a few questions. It was as if they stopped, staring at the prey that was a couple of steps away. The zombies watched the main character for a while until his dog moved away from him, still with a grumpy and indignant expression, and in general the animal behaved like a human. Ifan's words didn't take long to wait. According to his remark, the man came to the conclusion that by destroying zombies, you can get points that could be exchanged for valuables. This thought inspired the guy. He leveled up and cooked a frying pan, standing in an attacking pose. The main character exclaimed that if someone wants to be rich and successful, then he should rely only on himself. His expression reflected the desire to win. The character frowned, thus straining his eyes to see his opponent better, and the long bangs hid her eyes from the sunlight. The next moment Ifan was in the air. He decided to react quickly, not giving the Walking Dead a chance to attack. His rapid movement attracted the attention of the zombies who had been dumbfounded some time ago. They made an evil grin and made strange frightening sounds, trying to reach the main character with their sharp claws. But because of his slowness, one of them missed the moment when Ifan dealt him a crushing blow to the face. The shock was so strong that the Walking Dead flew several meters back. The new episode describes how Shi joined the battle with zombies, who tried to stop and delay the newly appearing Walking Dead with his sharp fangs. The main character continued to fight back, coping with rivals who had no end, and all the man used as a weapon was a frying pan, which he was somewhat surprised, and even glad, because after a couple of blows, Ifan exclaimed that he had chosen a pretty good device. However, a Walking Dead man of the second level, an opponent with whom the main character had already met before, made his way through the window frame. His abrupt appearance attracted the guy's attention, making him alert to the danger in the face of an evolved zombie. There was even a small spark in his eyes, giving off a red tint. That's just Ifan managed to turn away from the attack of the red-skinned Walking Dead, who hit the tiled floor with terrible force. The power was so crushing that small fragments from the stone foundation appeared in the air, and the main character, who managed to jump up, raised after high clouds of smoke and dust. The story develops further. This time she focuses readers' attention on the frying pan, which the main character used as a weapon. In the middle of it, there was a red spot in the form of a blow mark, from which steam emanated. Apparently, the bottom of the dishes warmed up from the attacking movement from the walking zombie when he tried to scratch the man. And he, in turn, looked at his frying pan with a surprised face and mentally even admired what strength his opponent possessed. In an instant, Ifan was on the ground. After a short flight, he landed on his feet, bunching up so as not to damage his limbs. A red-skinned monster was moving towards him, which, it might seem, had no eyes, but had sharp fangs, spikes on its back, and a long tongue. The Walking Dead didn't move like the others. He directed all his weight on his hands and pushed off with his feet, moving in this way like a wild animal. Chaos was going on around the monster, debris from broken stone slabs, furniture was shattered, and the walls of the building seemed to have never existed. In his head, the main character was thinking. He came to the conclusion that the strength and speed of these second-level zombies exceeded human ones, and that is why it is impossible to cope with them relying only on their own strength. The man got to his feet, straightening his back and putting his hands forward, preparing for a new attack. Then the story describes that something sharp, similar to a stake, attracted his attention. It might seem that fate had given him a hint, because the tip of this object shone, as if winking at Ifan. And so a brilliant idea was born in his head. It was like an electric shock hit him. The narrative still kept the focus on the sharp object, past which the main character took a couple of steps. Apparently, he was moving towards a red-skinned opponent. And he, in turn, stood motionless, mouth agape, thereby revealing a view of a huge and powerful jaw, made terrible sounds similar to the roar of a predator. His appearance was terrible. A long tongue protruded from his mouth. Each tooth was sharpened like a blade. There was no cartilage of the nose. Instead of the palate there were only 2 holes, and there were no eyes at all. Then Ifan made a very dangerous maneuver. He turned his back to the walking dead of the second level and put his hands in different directions. However, the guy was still holding the frying pan, in case his plan didn't go well. And at this time, the sharp end of the protruding object sparkled. Suspicious activity on the part of the main character only excited the evolved zombie. Even readers could notice how saliva flowed down his muzzle. Apparently, he already imagined how he managed to grab his prey. The walking dead rushed towards Ifan, demolishing the foundation behind him. The aura around him thickened, bringing a terrible and frightening shade to the silhouette of the red man. And when he had almost overtaken a man with his clawed limbs, standing with his back to him, the main character stared at him, turning his head slightly over his left shoulder, and then abruptly jumped to the right side, leaving no chance for his rival to catch him. And the zombie of the second level accelerated so fast that when an obstacle appeared in front of him, he simply could not stop. Thus, the monster did not have time to react and fell on the table leg. And in order to finish off and finally stop the walking dead of the second level, the guy made a swinging movement and dealt a crushing blow to the evolved creature. The following episode describes how the food delivery system congratulated its owner on a successfully completed mission. He managed to prevent an attack from the zombies of the second level, for which he received as many as 50 points, and now their total number was 551. The main character could spend them on any product of equivalent value. Ifan looked at his so-called weapon and exclaimed joyfully that, fortunately, the monster was not very smart, because otherwise he would have lost long ago or, even worse, ended his life. And then something bumped into his back. An electric current seemed to run through the man's body, which alerted him to danger. As it turned out, it was Purple Blue, a girl with short hair and a toned body. Ifan asked her a question. He was interested in what his interlocutor was doing, to which she ordered him not to move, because from now on he is her bodyguard. And finally, the heroine asked him to follow her. The next chapter will tell readers about how the main character spoke without a shadow of fear, addressing his new friend and asking her a question. He asked if she really thought he would just give up. The heroine stood quietly with her left hand on her side and listened to what her interlocutor would say. With a sharp brush movement, Ifan pointed at his dog, forcing him to react. Calling she, the man gave the command. And suddenly the animal was baring its teeth, making warning sounds at the same time. This made the girl wary. She quickly glanced at the angry dog. A man entered into the dialogue, who replied in a joyful tone to she that he finally understood, so his master was really happy. He had an ear-to-ear smile on his face. And then the picture describes how one sausage appeared on the horizon. There was even a glow around her. The fact was that the Purple Blue decided to attract the dog by manipulating it with food. Of course, the dog couldn't resist. She released his tongue and obediently began to wag his tail. This caused Ifan's face to change. His blissful facial expression became dismissive and irritated. The man clenched his left hand into a fist, and the slight smile turned into an evil grin. Suddenly, the next episode describes how the main character ended up tied to a chair. Actually, the same thing happened with Shia. The man could not say a word because of the obstacle in the form of duct tape on his mouth, so he ate the sounds and got some kind of moo. His dog resigned himself to the fact that he didn't make a move, so he just kept his head and bushy tail silent. Purple Blue started the conversation first. The girl was holding a whip in her right hand, probably in order to terrify Ifan. She asked him a question out loud. She was interested in the fact whether he would say what she wanted or not. The aura around her turned a dark shade with purple and black colors, which gave her a somewhat evil look. The silhouette of the heroine towered over the immobilized man and his dog. After these words, although, apparently, because they saw a long whip, these two became nervous. The whites of their eyes blocked the iris, which made them seem empty, traces appeared, and both mouths trembled. As it turned out, she was curious about how Ifan managed to awaken his incredible abilities, so she tried to force him to tell about it in a demanding tone. Then she pulled on the whip, thus drawing his attention to her. The characters were inside some old and shabby room. the walls of which were covered with mold. Why, they almost crumbled. A thought flashed through the man's mind. He felt that his interlocutor had behaved somewhat stupidly. The reason was that he couldn't speak because Purple Blue had taped his mouth shut. Actually, that's why she couldn't hear anything from him. It might seem that the heroine heard his thoughts. She instantly found herself in front of the guy and removed the obstacle from his face, which interfered with their conversation. Apparently, the heroine did it very abruptly, because Ifan twisted his facial expressions, as if he was in pain. She said out loud that she had taken off the tape. The next moment, Purple Blue lifted the protagonist's chin using the hard end of the whip. She lowered her body a little to get a better look at the guy's face, and thereby follow his reaction. The heroine asked him a question, and readers became aware that she was interested in the man's abilities, so she asked what he possessed. Moreover, she made an assumption that there was some kind of organization behind Ifan. Her eyes shone with excitement and desire, as if she was deliberately trying to please him. Apparently, the girl manipulated her interlocutor, forcing him to be attracted to the appearance. As it turned out, her attempts were not in vain. He really liked what he saw, readers could tell by his expression, which turned red. There were even small drops of sweat from the tense situation. Even she couldn't keep from looking so mesmerizing. An aura of love and tenderness hovered around them. It was as if they were hypnotized. Only in the next second, Purple Blue straightened up and looked down at her captives. She changed her face, making the expression of facial expressions more rigid. The atmosphere became oppressive, because the girl again asked if the main character would tell her his secret. Then she made a swinging motion and tried to treat him badly. Her next move made Shi nervous, who was surprised that this was happening to his master, because he could get it too. Purple Zin screamed at the top of her voice, because if Ifan doesn't tell her anything, then otherwise he will have to suffer a heavy punishment. The audience saw the longing in her eyes. She was telling the truth and was sure of what she was doing. Such pressure, of course, affected the character's morale. His pupils shrank, and sweat and saliva began to form even stronger on his face, flowing from his mouth open in fear. The overgrown bangs hid the man's eyes with a shadow, and the tense eyebrows emphasized small wrinkles. He forcefully exclaimed that he would do everything as the girl said. The story continues its fascinating narrative. This time the picture tells how, under the pressure of the Purple Blue, the main character gave up and began to conduct his monologue. According to him, he really didn't know how he managed to get such powers a little earlier, because the guy didn't do anything for this, he just woke up with them. Ifan took a deep breath, as if this fact made him a little sad. To his left sat his dog, who, by his very appearance alone, pressed on pity. Shi rolled his eyes for effect. Apparently, the animal hoped that the heroine would take pity on them and believe what they were saying. Then the main character made a sad expression on his face, as if her oppressive behavior made him burst into tears. Tears streamed down Ifan's face like a stream, and he himself exclaimed, turning to his sister to let him go, referring to the fact that he was still a child. That's just the heroine was unshakable. Her facial expressions did not change from the word at all. Without thinking twice, she asked the bound guy what his relationship was with the Pangu Corporation. At this point, the system decided to familiarize readers and the man with this new term. It became known that the Pangu Corporation was one of the largest corporations in the post-apocalyptic world. She had the ability to artificially create people with different abilities. A black silhouette of huge buildings appeared before the eyes of the audience, which were surrounded by a red sinister aura. Ifan was genuinely surprised. He asked in Purple Blue what kind of corporation it was, because he had never heard of it before. The girl believed in the honesty of her interlocutor's words. However, the next moment she asked him to show what he was capable of. The heroine was holding a gun in her right hand, so she wanted to add a more scary and frightening look to her figure, thereby putting pressure on the will of the guy. She exclaimed that if Ifan disobeyed her or even allowed an escape attempt, then she would have to act. Her gaze expressed determination. Even though the gray room was dark due to the lack of sunlight, her sinister eyes were clearly highlighted. Apparently, the mysterious appearance of the Purple Blue made the main character say that he would do everything as she wished. And it's going to happen right now. According to the man's remark, his ability was that he received points for destroying zombies, which the guy could later safely exchange for various items. He was scared because his body was still tied up. Moreover, the girl had a weapon. His words pleased the Purple Blue. In her thoughts, she came to the conclusion that exchanging points for items could be quite useful. But she didn't say it out loud, saying it together in a demanding tone so that Ifan would show it to her. The picture focused on the main character. Sunlight broke into the room, which illuminated the top of the guy's head. He gave a positive answer and looked at his interlocutor. Suddenly, blue tables appeared around them, which brightly illuminated the gray room. Behind each of them were various items, from food to devices that could be used to fight. The system asked a question to its owner. She wondered if he wanted to buy something in this mini store. Ifan pulled a smile from ear to ear and with a joyful tone added from himself that this food delivery system seemed to him quite convenient now. Then his gaze fell on a blue iron jar that was floating in the air. As it turned out, the main character was negatively disposed, because soda cost as much as 15 points. For him such a price seemed quite large and not appropriate. His face changed. Now the facial expressions expressed a bad mood. The man pretended that he was crying. And the reason was that why a young man who earned only 3,000 a month had to take on such a burden. But his thoughts were interrupted. Purple Blue knocked on the chair the guy was tied to and gave him the order to hurry up. She pointed the index finger of her left hand at this very can of soda and demanded that the main character take it. Suddenly, the digital object began to disappear, and after a short moment it appeared right in front of the man's face. This trick surprised both him and she. A blue color emanated from the soda can, which illuminated their funny reaction. They both opened their mouths in anticipation of what would happen next. The girl directed her hand to the object floating in the air, trying to take it. And in her thoughts, she came to the firm conclusion that in such a difficult time, these things can be considered precious. Moreover, she was convinced that this guy's abilities were very useful. Only something interrupted her thoughts. As it turned out, it was the phone that gave the sound of the incoming alert. It was in the pants pocket of the main character. Purple Blue took the smartphone, the screen of which is bumpy yellow. Readers became aware that the system made a hint to Ifan. The customer was a heroine named Lan Suhin, and the order itself was placed on the provided number. The time for delivery was allocated for 1 hour and 15 minutes. With the last sentence, the system asked the man to deliver everything as soon as possible. When Purple Zin saw the name Zai Hin, she was very surprised. It was as if a discharge, similar to an electric one, passed through her body. The story continues to lead an exciting narrative. First, she describes how Purple Blue and the main character moved around on their motorcycles, red and yellow, respectively. The girl asked the man when he received the order for Zai Hin. Tall glass-like buildings accompanied their movement. Ifan replied after thinking for a while that it was before he fell into a coma. The reader's attention fell on the pretty dog, who joyfully opened his mouth, spilling out a long pink tongue, and caught the air currents in this way. That's just Purple Blue only got more angry from this. She screamed at the top of her voice, wondering why the man did not send this order earlier. Further, the fierce and angry girl made it clear to him that if something went wrong through his fault, she would not let him go unharmed. There was horror in her eyes. That's just who she was worried about. Such an audacious reaction made Ifan shrink from resentment and fear. He begged his interlocutor to spare him. Even she stopped messing around and wrinkled his little nose in indignation. And then the main character decided to defuse the situation. A brilliant idea came to his head, which he voiced a couple of seconds later. As it turned out, the man made the assumption that his new acquaintance and this Lan Zai Hin were sisters. He scratched his chin and made a mysterious look, which, in fact, was repeated by his dog. The couple were like twins. Their mood changed in one direction. They behaved similarly. That's just Purple Blue didn't like it. She flashed her eyes, in which a bright spark appeared, emphasizing her resentment in her gaze. A moment later, it became known that something attracted her attention, because the heroine grabbed her gun, which greatly strained the protagonist and she, who shrank from fear and rounded their eyes. The girl fired a shot. She hit a walking dead man who appeared behind the man. While he was joking and trying to bring a new acquaintance to a dialogue, a zombie managed to sneak up on him, pricking up its gray long claws. Thanks to Purple Blue's quick reaction, a failed attack from the monster was prevented because due to the push and pressure from the dust, he tipped backwards over his back. Then the story showed it in close-up. The walking dead literally flopped down, and Ifan and she, retreating morally from fear, watched the danger in the face of the monster, sitting on their yellow moped. Suddenly the girl exclaimed and demanded that the guy stop talking complete nonsense, and finally helped her. She was angry while the two revived again. The heroine decided to spur the man and his dog, saying that if they arrived later than her, she would break Ifan's leg. An aura thickened around her, acquiring an intimidating chill. The next episode describes how the Purple Blue pressed the gas and rapidly headed forward, raising columns of dust and hot air after itself. The main character stood still for a while and silently watched her back. The road was clear. The sun was shining on the street, illuminating the huge multi-story buildings that were built like a ruler. A sharp movement on the part of his sister made Ifan nervous. He shouted after her that the girl was riding a motorcycle, and he was on a scooter, so he just physically would not be able to catch up with her. She was the only one who didn't worry about anything. He was glad that the trip had begun. The blue color scheme prevailed in the city because of the towering skyscrapers that almost reached the sky. They were of different sizes and widths. However, the next episode described to readers a multi-story house around which a bloody aura swirled. There were drops of blood everywhere, on the windows, on the walls, on the road in the end. As well as zombies, they roamed around this building, as if they were guarding what was inside. The attention of the audience was attracted by bright sparks and black smoke, which rose from the braking of a red motorcycle purple-blue. The girl stopped her phone and exclaimed, turning to Zai-hin so that she would hold on, because she would be near soon. Behind her, a yellow moped appeared, on which the main character Ishii was riding. That's just their appearance was very tired. A man with a sweaty face, twisting his breathless and dissatisfied facial expressions, triumphantly said that they had finally arrived. And his dog, at that time, was foaming at the mouth. When Ifan got up from behind his scooter and took a couple of steps in the direction of his new friend, the girl had already prepared 2 pistols and turned to the main character, saying that if he had arrived a second later, she would have made him regret it. The guy came closer and stood back to back, looking at the purple-blue over his left shoulder. In his opinion, he was very lucky that he could run well, because otherwise he would not have had time. The man then prepared his frying pan, which he used as a defensive weapon. Light energy was formed around them. Apparently, the characters were counting on each other. The narrative continues its rapid development, forcing readers to empathize with the main characters. This time the story begins with a description of the purple-blue. She was holding a pistol in both hands and looking somewhere to the side. Behind her were tall buildings that were decorated with flower beds with planted trees with bright green foliage. As it turned out, her attention was attracted by a walking zombie. Then, not only the heroine, but also she and Ifan were already looking in his direction. After a couple of seconds, the audience could see his appearance. It was a level 2 zombie. He had a human torso and head, but he was distinguished from other monsters by a spider-like jaw with sharp claws and huge clawed paws that exceeded the usual size by 2 times. The main character disparagingly said out loud that he had a terrible mouth, and then he glanced at the girl who was standing to his left. Purple-blue was lost in her thoughts at this time. According to them, the heroine was wondering if everything was okay with Zai-hin, because there were so many monsters on her face. Now the narrative has focused on Shi, who made an evil expression of his muzzle and bared his teeth. Suddenly, the second-level zombie broke into a run, raising a column of dust and crushing the ground. This forced the main characters to prepare for the attack. The Walking Dead man opened his mouth and carefully watched the prey. However, a girl ran out to meet him, which somewhat surprised Ifan. He watched as the girl jumped over the monster. Thus, now the creature with large tentacles was rushing to the dog and his master. Purple-blue landed on both feet, bunching up to avoid injury, and turned her head over her left shoulder, casting a quick glance at her buddy. She screamed at the top of her voice for the guy to deal with this creature himself, because she planned to save Zai-hin. However, such audacious behavior on the part of the girl did not please the main character at all. He screamed in horror so that she would not leave him alone in any case. This is how she reacted. It was as if they were revived by a charge similar to an electric one. Only the purple-blue was already far away from them. Then the guy's gaze fell on the approaching Walking Dead with large claws, as if he was turning into a spider. The zombie was running towards the man with his arms outstretched. It might have seemed that Ifan changed his mind, because the horror left his face. A joyful appearance appeared instead. The main character pulled a smile from ear to ear, and the position of his eyes and eyebrows expressed confidence and the desire to win. The guy exclaimed out loud that he just wanted to try out his frying pan and battle again. In the next second, he took a step, coming down off the floor, and the story focused on the zombie's head, or rather on its lower part. Once in the air, Ifan delivered a crushing blow to the Walking Dead, forcing him to bend backwards. He fell to the ground, raising dust and stones after him. Then she decided to finally immobilize him. The day dog bared his sharp fangs and opened his mouth wide, heading towards the zombies. The main character stood silently and watched how his kind pet could show himself. On the other hand, suddenly, the system started an alert. An inscription appeared on the blue table that the man received 1 point. Now his total number of points at the moment was 481. However, this unpleasantly surprised Ifan, because he made an audacious assumption that the system was broken. The reason was that he had just defeated a level 2 zombie and he was only given 1 point. The man pursed his lips and looked at the monster again. Only at first he came across she, whose mouth was completely covered in blood. His eyes were burning with a bright blue color. Anger and some kind of rage could be read in them. After a couple of seconds, he was already sitting and wagging his tail. Even his muzzle was clean. That was probably why a warm yellow aura shone around him. Of course, such a rare behavior did not leave the dog without attention. Ifan squatted down, stroking Shi's neck, and made a guess that the dog had changed a little. Suddenly, something made the main character turn around. He looked back and took a deep breath. Now the facial expressions of both the man and Shi have become tense again. Moreover, the energy has acquired a dark shade mixed with black and purple colors, and readers could only guess what had happened. After all, the dog was transformed by making a grin, and his master was nervously coming up with a plan of action. The story continues to lead the narrative, preserving the intrigue. The action describes how 3 figures appeared on the horizon. They were zombie girls dressed in swimsuits. They were about the same height and the same build. Instead of whites, there was some kind of orange emptiness in the eyes, and the claws were on the fingers of both hands and feet. Behind them, the sun had already begun to set, giving the last rays of its radiance to illuminate the glass surface on which the walking dead were walking. However, their appearance somewhat puzzled the man and his dog. The reason was that Ifan was doing bad things, so he put his left hand on his hip and held the frying pan down with his right hand. To his left sat Shi, who, like his master, twisted his displeased face. This fact didn't bother the zombies at all. One of the girls started running, moving towards the main character, which made him wary. The monster with long blonde hair and skin, the color of which had a purple hue, made a swinging movement, trying to hit the main character hard. However, he, in turn, managed to react and substitute his frying pan, so the girl hit her bottom. The impact was so powerful that under pressure, the so-called weapon hit Ifan in the face. For a while he stood silently and held his head, trying to come to a normal state. The walking dead, once again preparing his clawed hand, watched the prey expectantly. Then the guy closed his left eye and pointed at the monster. Snot flowed from his nose and tears from his eyes. The right side of his face was smeared and scratched after being hit and coming into contact with a frying pan. He exclaimed and objected that it was too much, even superfluous. The story focused readers' attention on the expression of the monster girl's facial expressions. She didn't understand what Ifan was talking about, because her response was an evil grin and a wrinkled face, which made her look like a witch. The main character asked her forgiveness in advance and demanded that she did not blame him for what he was going to do. There was interest in his gaze. Apparently, the man was eager to test his strength and show what he was capable of. After a moment, Ifan took off from the ground and hovered in the air in a jump, leaving the walking dead in the face of a girl of the first level to watch him alone. Then he made a swinging motion with his frying pan. Red flames shone around him, as if he had caught fire with the idea of victory. Aloud, he shouted at the top of his voice what it was called: a man from above, a woman from below, a ferocious dragon in the sky. At the moment of landing, the main character made a fierce expression on his face, trying to beat out anger and rage. In the next instant, Ifan delivered a crushing blow to the zombie girl in the green swimsuit. The whites of his eyes turned a ferocious red, and the aura around him thickened, becoming dark, which is why the man's appearance acquired a frenzied energy. Other walking dead, apparently former girlfriends of the stricken heroine, silently watched as the guy struck her down. They spread their clawed hands in different directions and stared in front of them in bewilderment. And after some time they rushed away, leaving the body of their friend. Ifan towered over her and cast a glance at the others, who had already managed to move a few meters away from him. The main character became joyful, of course, because he coped with all the obstacles that arose. Exclaiming that the situation was in his favor, he put his so-called weapon on his right shoulder and relaxed. However, his peaceful mood did not last long. Something was happening behind his back. A sound caught his attention and made him half turn over his left shoulder. The problem was the appearance of Purple Blue, who fired a shot with her pistol. Under her right arm she was leading a heroine with long blonde hair. Readers may have noticed several walking dead running after them. When the man looked at the girls, he heard a new acquaintance call out to him. She was asking for help. Moreover, his expression, which was almost always confident and bold, took on the appearance of fear. Probably, the reason was in the immobilized Sai-hin, whose eyes were empty. It's like she's been zombified. The next chapter describes the actions that took place around Purple Zin and Lan Zai-hin, a new heroine who had long blonde hair. She was dressed in a school uniform and apparently somehow felt strange. The girl was unable to move on her own, so she leaned on the shoulder of the heroine already familiar to readers. They were being chased by the walking dead, and at least there were only a few of them. Ifan took a look at them and in his thoughts wondered if this was the same Lan Hin. He compared it to the purple blue, and as he expected, his guesses turned out to be true. Suddenly, some walking dead got too close to them, which alerted a girl with short hair and a refined figure, which was also emphasized by a top and a short skirt. She turned her head over her left shoulder and stared at the monster. In the next episode, viewers could see him even closer. The creature's nose, or rather what was left of it, looked like a pig's snout, the whites of its eyes became orange chasms, and its teeth were pointed like a knife blade. Purple Blue fired a shot and dealt a crushing defeat to this zombie, forcing him to lean back over his back. Then she called out to Ifan and in a demanding tone gave him an order to go to their side as soon as possible and help. Apparently, it was difficult for the girls to carry Lan Hin herself, but she was still able to repel the attack of vicious and hungry creatures. After another scream, the man finally came to his senses. He and she rushed towards the direction of the two heroines who were in trouble. The main character made a swinging motion with his frying pan in a gesture so that the next walking dead man received a portion of blows. A bright aura shone around him, giving him the appearance of a hero or savior. The man managed to distract the monsters on himself, thereby giving the female representatives a chance to escape. Ifan and his dog coped well with the danger, which, in fact, made the cold Purple Blue smile and blush in her face. She caught a glimpse of her savior, who continued to strike with his frying pan. For example, he stopped the attack of a zombie, who, apparently, used to be an office employee, because he was dressed in a strict suit. In the next episode, the focus was on Shi, a dog who stopped the walking dead thanks to his sharp fangs. He bit some monster on the leg, preventing him from getting closer to the girls who were trying to escape. Then the story shifts attention to Ifan, who managed to repel the attack of another creature of the first level. Sometime after the end of the fight, the man fell into thought. In his head, he regretted that he no longer received delivery points for destroying zombies of such power. The main character stood and watched the road on which the bodies of his former rivals were scattered, looking out for new ones. At this time, Purple Zin sat Lan Hin down and tried to bring her to her senses. Ifan made the assumption that from now on, level 1 zombies were no longer considered the walking dead. He put his bloody frying pan on his right shoulder and after some time went to the girls. Suddenly, the guy took out some kind of jar with a red lid and handed it to his friend, saying that it was probably an order for her. When Purple Blue took it, he asked her a question. He wondered if everything was alright with the heroine with long hair. Moreover, he believed that they were very lucky, because he managed to deliver the goods on time. Suddenly, the system started notifying him. She congratulated the main character on the successful completion of the mission. The reward was 100 delivery points, and as it became known, the guy opened a hidden mission. His eyes lit up with interest and, to some extent, excitement. Readers remained interested in what she meant by herself. The action of the next chapter begins with a description of the mysterious space inside which the main character and his dog found themselves. It had a color scheme consisting of white, green and blue. Ifan examined the digital location and repeated the words about the hidden mission aloud to the system. He was interested in what was actually happening. The glow was so bright that the man tried to hide his eyes by covering them with his right hand. Thus, he was able to reproduce the shadow and better inspect everything around. In his opinion, this time the system appeared differently. Suddenly, a blue silhouette appeared in front of him. As it turned out, it was the spirit of the system. The sparkling character greeted the main character and introduced himself. After a certain period of time, readers could see a girl with long pink hair, under which clothes with the same coloring were chosen. In the stranger's right hand was a staff. She looked like a fairy, just as small and magical. Then the girl raised her hand and pointed to the side, at the same time telling the mortals to get on their feet. Ifan and Chi froze, not out of amazement, but rather out of misunderstanding. Discontent was reflected on their faces, and the main character, apparently, said aloud the thoughts of both. They didn't fully believe what was happening to them now. Moreover, the heroes didn't even know how to react. Therefore, the man said out loud the words of his stranger and made a stupid facial expression. In the new episode, the story draws readers' attention to the somewhat arrogant behavior of the spirit of the system. The girl crossed her arms over her chest and raised her eyebrows proudly, as if Ifan had no right to an explanation. Aloud she replied that he and his dog should kneel down and pray. The stranger called them mortals, emphasizing this, and if the man forgot, then she would like to remind him that he could call her a goddess or an angel, in which case any option would be appropriate. However, this information did not please the guy with Shi at all. They bared their teeth viciously and stared menacingly at the spirit of the system, thus warning it. Their eyes, red with anger and rage, reflected anger, and the aura around them took the form of huge flames. When the girl turned in their direction over her right shoulder, she asked them a question. She wondered what the mortals thought about what she had been talking to herself about all this time. Readers may have noticed how the dark energy began to thicken behind her. Probably for this reason, beads of sweat appeared on her face. That's just the reason was different. Ifan struggled with the system for so long, and she, in turn, just came and gave the order to bow before her. Although the main character's next sentence sounded somewhat boorish, but nevertheless he said it out loud. The man wondered if the stranger really thought that he would not beat the girl. His dog picked up this mood. He growled and viciously watched the spirit of the system. And she screamed at the top of her voice that they would not come close to her, and quickly waved her left hand, as if fighting back. Suddenly, both of the protagonist's hands reached forward. The story describes to readers how the girl made a confused expression on her face. Her eyebrows rose helplessly up, large tears appeared in her eyes, and her skin turned red. She gulped air greedily in order to regain her breath. In the next episode, it became known what was in Ifan. The man tickled the left foot of the arrogant spirit of the system. When she had already started laughing uncontrollably, the main character asked to tell him why the system did not want to leave his life in any way. He was so interested in the question of where she came from in the first place. Otherwise, the guy promised to do everything possible to destroy it. The stranger burst out laughing, and the man felt that he needed to explain himself. In his opinion, he had somewhat confused the spirit of the system, so he should have noted that it was indeed very beautiful. A suspicious grin formed on his face, and his aura turned dark, as if Ifan was up to something. Finally, a girl with a face as red as a tomato entered the dialogue. She made it clear to the man that she did not mind spending time alone with him, because the most severe punishment for this inappropriate gesture was 3 years in prison. The main character, who was still holding her ankle with both hands, turned his head towards she, who apparently agreed with him. The dog, just like his owner, waved his muzzle in a sign of no. Suddenly the guy asked her a question. He was curious about what she was actually talking about, because he was a completely respectable citizen. The man imagined himself smiling and holding a red sign with an inscription that contained an organization of young people helping those in need. Moreover, he narrowed his eyes suspiciously and, pointing at the spirit of the system with the index finger of his left hand, added that he had no attraction to children. Apparently, he mistook the girl for such, because she was small in stature and weight. In the next remark, the guy was curious whether his new interlocutor was a good person, because for what reason she was connected with the system. Such bold words made her angry. The heroine clenched her fist and defiantly pulled it forward, thus threatening him. The spirit of the system took an attacking pose and shouted that if this brave mortal dares to continue saying such things about her, then he will obviously not be well. She put out her staff and added that otherwise she would have to help the second user instead. The answer of the main character did not take long to think. He narrowed his eyes and strained his eyebrows, which made his expression look somewhat suspicious. Ifan asked if he had heard the second remark. Moreover, he was interested in the fact who the second user actually was. However, as it might seem to readers, the girl only became more cheerful from such a jealous reaction on the part of the protagonist. She replied that when a user is connected to the system, the second one receives help from her. The story focused on she, who did not understand how to react correctly. He just wagged his tail for a while and looked somewhere to the side. It became known that the name of the second user is Dennis. The spirit of the system turned to the dog and in a demanding tone gave him the order to kneel and bow, at the same time thanking the Lord that he gave him a chance. However, the dog did not respond, at least for a while. Suddenly, Chi and his master made their facial expressions twisted, as if they had just been insulted. Although it was, Ifan called the system spirit aunt and made an explanation for her that it wasn't like kindergarten, so she didn't need to treat them like children. Finally, he asked her not to scold him for reminding him that the methods he used were extremely cruel. The girl in comparison with them was so small that it could seem as if she was talking to two predators. She froze and began to wait for something. The story continues its fascinating narrative. This time she describes the real world in which Purple Zin and Lan Zin were left alone. The first one wondered where her friend with the dog could have gone. She continued to hold the heroine, who found it difficult to resist on her own, and began to inspect the area around her. Tall buildings towered behind them, and green bushes were a little closer, thanks to which they could hide from the danger that had arisen. In front, on the road, were the bodies of defeated zombies. Then the girlfriend of the main character looked at some small device that showed his awakening glasses. According to him, there were already 78 of them. which surprised her a lot because they were insanely high. This made her make a bold assumption that Ifan was in a parallel universe right now. A light aura and white sparks appeared around her, but her thoughts were interrupted by the screams of a girl with long hair. Zihin began to behave strangely. At first she shrank, as if she had something in pain, and then the heroine abruptly opened her eyes, in which there was no iris and pupil, they looked like white abysses. Suddenly, a blue glow appeared around her, which raised a huge hurricane simultaneously with columns of smoke and dust. Such an unexpected jolt threw Purple Blue several meters away, but she managed to get to her feet. In the next episode, the story focuses readers' attention on the blue butterfly wings that formed behind Zihin's back. The girl rose up, as if floating. Such strange and suspicious activity surprised the heroine with short hair. She came to the conclusion in her thoughts that the values of her friend's awakening had also increased, so now she was interested in the question of what was happening to her. Moreover, there was a shadow of horror and fear on her face. When Zihin came down to the ground, the girl approached her, after a while switching to running. She was excited because she had no idea how such a thing could be possible. For what reason did Hin become awakened? And she, in turn, again helplessly closed her eyes and fell unconscious. Purple Blue managed to catch her and slowly lowered her body to the ground. The sun was already sinking below the horizon. The heroine made the assumption that her friend's strange behavior was related to the company in which she worked. Then she looked at the small device and saw that the awakening glasses had become 96, which surprised her even more. Out loud, Purple Blue turned to the girl, saying that most likely she was right, because her awakening values are really close to the awakened person. She, in turn, tried to open her eyes, but she was still silent. Some kind of blue-colored seal appeared on the forehead of this mysterious Zihin, and her eyes had a dark blue hue. Suddenly, the action is transferred to the enraged spirit of the system, in whose eyes terror was reflected. The squirrels changed to red space. This character grabbed his staff and clenched his left hand into a fist, so she showed how angry she was. And then the picture showed the readers Ifan and she, who were floating in the air connected by thick digital threads. The girl took a deep breath and said out loud that if they did not receive a confession from the system, they would be severely punished. What both characters were very surprised, rather even scared. Their sweaty faces were as if dried up, only the white was reflected in their eyes, which gave them a somewhat frenzied look. The aura around them took on a dark hue, mixed with purple and blue colors. Then they defiantly fell to the floor. The system spirit had been silently watching all this time when Ifan and his dog would finish their game. It might seem that such strange behavior bored her. Suddenly, the main character got to his feet and scratched his chin. He said out loud with a humbling tone that since he had been chosen by the system, he would have to accept her offer anyway. She, who was sitting to his left, waved his muzzle in a gesture of agreement. Then he turned to Dennis, saying that a man would rise above everyone, that even the system would ask him to become its owner. However, the last phrase puzzled the girl. She twisted her face and mentally exclaimed that she had never said such a thing. A fiery energy formed around her, and there were sparks in his eyes. But the spirit of the system did not dare to object. She clenched her left hand into a fist and mentally reflected that now there was much less potential in Ifan than in a dog. At the next moment, the heroine took a deep breath and changed the subject. She began to conduct a dialogue regarding the secret mission. Suddenly, a blue scoreboard appeared in front of the main character. The following words were written on it. The system brought congratulations to Ifan on the successful activation of the secret mission. The user, that is, he had to get 5 stars, and then he would be rewarded with 500 delivery points. In case of failure, unfortunately, it will be destroyed. Information about the path of the stars made the main character tense up. The reason was simple and obvious. In such an apocalyptic world, they were very difficult to obtain. Moreover, if the customer evaluates his work unfairly, he will still be destroyed. His words made she howl in fear and terror. However, the girl waved her staff and asked him not to worry, because the system would make a fair verdict on its own. Then her face took on a suspicious look, because something amused the spirit. As it turned out, the point was that she would make this verdict. That's just the main character was not at all happy about this information. He looked at his interlocutor with glassy eyes and was silent for a while. Then the man scratched his chin and let her know that he wasn't worried at all about the 5-star rating, because he got it quite often, and it wasn't very difficult. He also added on his own that his nickname used to be the King of Delivery. However, suddenly a question popped up in his mind. The story continues to lead an intriguing narrative. In the next episode, she describes how the main character patted his dog on the head and addressed the spirit of the system that stood in front of him. He said out loud that he had said a little earlier that Dennis would receive some of the information from the system as a second user. Then he fell into thought. The man remembered that before he was surrounded by zombies, he managed to see a strange light in the sky, and after he was struck by lightning, he scratched his chin and continued to explain. If the guy wasn't wrong, then that's when the system noticed him. Images appeared in Ifan's head as he fell off his yellow scooter and lay motionless for a while. Then the main character was behind the 11th, that is, Shi, and began to pull his cheeks. He made a bold assumption that the dog was also recognized by the system. Moreover, for this simple and obvious reason, Shi was in subspace. He was interested in the question of what abilities his pet possessed. The girl watched in silence for a while with an uncomprehending look what her interlocutor was doing. Even the dog was surprised by such a stream of thoughts on the part of his master. As it turned out, Shi really had hidden abilities. The spirit of the system explained that his strength was in the wool, and the skill was dog polizushki. The girl crossed her arms over her chest and closed her eyes triumphantly. That's just Ifan and the 11th twisted their facial expressions, which was accompanied by drops of sweat quickly rolling off their faces. The man asked her what kind of ability it was. He wondered if this skill was even useful in any way, because, in his opinion, it consisted in the fact that she was supposed to lick someone. The spirit of the system began to explain. As it turned out, the main character was the owner of the second user, so if this cute dog melts people's hearts, then he will understand the value of his skill. An episode appeared in the heroine's head when the purple blue stroked the top of the dog's head and smiled, relaxing at the same time. Moreover, the dog polizushki could open up various combat abilities for Ifan. This information made him somewhat happy. He could spend the deliverman's points on goods and items, and dog polizushki on opening and leveling abilities. The girl was inspired. She went on to explain that the first time they unlock this ability, they will be given a combat skill. As it might seem, Shi was somewhat surprised by the information he heard. But there were sparks in his master's eyes. He called out to Denise through laughter and looked at the 11th, who was only getting more nervous. The aura even thickened around the dog, acquiring a dark shade. However, suddenly the dog began to disappear like a player in a game. Then the action is transferred to the real world. A blue glow appeared to the right of the purple Xin and Sai Hin. This attracted the attention of the girl, who continued to hold her unconscious friend. Ifan and Shi appeared in front of them. The man ran up to his new legal and asked the girl a question. He was interested in what happened to the heroine with long pink hair. Purple Shino picked up Zai Hin and made an offer to start by finding a safe place to rest. Her gaze expressed seriousness and more reliability. The bright sun illuminated the tall, bright buildings, from behind which a large shadow appeared, hiding the danger in the city. The picture described how a group of guys were moving in the direction of a huge mansion that was completely covered in blood. Red spots decorated its walls, windows, fence and yard. Then they were inside. The painting describes how the silhouette of the main character disappeared behind high wooden doors. However, something interesting was happening in the basement of this villa. The story tells readers that a man was lying on a cold stone floor. He had short brown hair and purple eyes. The character wore square-shaped glasses and somewhat shabby things. The stranger shouted at the top of his voice, looking in front of him, so that someone would not enter the room and dare not touch him. The whites of his eyes acquired the red color of the mass of burst capillaries at the edges. And then the action describes how someone's hand with swollen and bulging vessels stretched in the direction of the frightened man. As it turned out, after a short period of time, it was a monster, except he didn't look like the rest of the Walking Dead, because even his silhouette was different from a human one. This zombie had bright blue skin, which in some places was illuminated by red spots, similar to flashlights. This monstrous creature had 2 heads, 4 arms that looked more like wings, and at least 5 legs. And this is just what the readers managed to see. Energy continued to thicken around the monster, which had an evil and intimidating character.